Hey, gang, how's it going? Welcome to the warming up. Good afternoon. It's morning somewhere, just not here. We are now on issue 14. Issue 14, social distancing day for me, 45. How about you guys? You guys all good, healthy, sticking around with your family, friends, on your own, whatever it may be. Hopefully this is a welcome distraction. It's always a welcome distraction for me, except today. Today I have on Dan Panosian. He calls himself the Urban Barbarian. I don't know why. It seems a little egotistical, maybe. I don't know. He fancies himself a tough guy. I don't know. Dan is a loathsome human being. I've hated him my entire life, and he literally he's got big arms. So he actually literally twisted my little wiry arm behind my back and said, "Put me on the show." So here he is. He's on the show. Of course, I'm only mildly lying. I like him a little bit. He's one of my best buds in the world, and truly a great artist. But I'll tell you what actually makes Dan really unique to me is that he is literally hard to. I don't want to call him self-made, but he is someone who has improved his artwork over the course of his career in ways that when you see a talent, usually you could see sort of what's the threshold of that particular talent. They can get to this point. That Dan has always exceeded that threshold. I think that people have set for him, and it's all through hard work and dedication. He's also worked in a lot of different fields in the art world and even before the art world, which I think is really, really valuable. But I think his story, probably more than anybody I know, is one of the most valuable ones for artists of all ilks, not just comic books, because he tries everything and he's got a good business head on his shoulders, and that's why he's still here. I mean, I've known Dan now for about 30 years, probably more than 30 years, and we'll talk about that history in a little bit. I announced on Twitter yesterday that, hold on, I didn't have it ready. Hang on. Here you go. Here are the pencils. Let's see if we can see this. My white adjust. Okay. Here are the pencils to the I Am Captain America piece that I did. I'm going to be auctioning this off shortly. I'll make that announcement as to where it will be auctioned off, and the money will go to a worthy cause. Again, it was part of I had done a piece years ago for an initiative we did at Marvel called I Am Captain America, where it showed everyday working people wearing something Captain America-ish. And the one that I did was a firefighter. So it just hit me one night, and I just started drawing, and I did this in a few hours. And then I just sort of inked it digitally, and out it went. But so I'm going to be auctioning this off. So anybody who's interested in this, keep an eye out on my Twitter and my Facebook. I'll let you know where the money will be going. Talking to some folks right now. As always, we've got the Marvel, Marvel.com, I Love Comics URL there. If you want to know what comic shops in your area are open in some way, shape, or form, how they're getting books out, if they're getting books out, this is a URL that is constantly being updated with new information. So support your shops. There's still stuff out there, and keep your eyes to the skies, because comics will be back, and they're going to be back strong. As always, we have a Q&A function that will be at the end of my interview with Dan. We got a lot of stuff to show, so who knows how long this is going to run. If it runs too long, I'm just going to cut him off, because I asked my guests to send me some images, and Dan sent me like thousands of them. I'm like, dude, how much of your stuff do you want to brag about? It's unrelenting with him. So he sent me a lot of images. I had to cull through them, but I still have a lot. So who knows what we'll get through. But we're going to be talking about all aspects of his life, which I think is really, really fascinating. He really thinks it's fascinating, and I'm supposed to say that. But also, if you have any questions, chime in early on the feed. As I always say, I cannot see the feed, but I got my buddy Alex at Marvel Central. He's looking at the feed, and if there are questions that are unique to the ones that get asked on Twitter and Facebook the night before, you might get it answered. And again, I do post a Q&A thread on Twitter and on my Facebook. You see my social handles over here, and ask your questions. And I think probably 95% of them, if they're really good questions, get asked. I've got some really good questions for Dan at the end of this, so stick around. Crazy questions. All right. Without further ado, he couldn't figure out how to hit the mute button on his Skype. Go figure. So Dan's been very, very quiet backstage. I'm going to bring him on right now. Desperately like me, in need of a haircut. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait, we're flipped, Dan. We're flipped. I got to change you. You're under me, and I'm under you. Hold on. That sounded terrible. Hold on a second. Let's bring you back on. There we go. Dan Panosian, the Urban Barbarian himself. Woo! Let's hear it. Hang on. I think I actually have an applause sound if I hear it.
That'd be great.
There we go.
All right, that feels better.
That's probably more than you get at a convention, right?
Well, I mean, my agent, when he contacted you, said that was a part of the show, right?
Yes,
I get that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the finger sandwiches are being delivered next month when it's safe.
The green room was impressive. I loved it.
Yes. So that halo behind you is beautiful, man. That circle light you got, that's got a real professional light you've got there.
It is, except that you can see it, and
well,
makes
because
me
you
look like an angel.
In typical Panosian fashion, you have mirrors everywhere to look at yourself, right?
Oh yeah,
you got mirrors
every
behind
angle.
you. I mean, we see you from all sides. So that's the problem with having that light when you're doing something like this, is that it's shining right behind you in a very halo effect. But I'm gonna guess it's on purpose. You do have a career. You have a career, or had a career. You still have a career as a model, don't you? You still model from time to time.
No. Well, actually, I do. I was in a Disney hotel brochure last year.
That's right. And your wife is too. So is your son.
Yeah, no, she's
the whole family. The whole family is.
They saw my son and my wife, and they're like,
right.
"Is there a father to go along with these shots?" And then they.
Right. You got anybody whose eyebrows match his kid's eyebrows? Your kid has glorious eyebrows.
Find anyone.
Yeah. But he doesn't have the tweezer his yet, right?
Tweezers. Professional grade.
So let's talk about. I really want to get from soup to nuts with you, because the thing that I've known you, Dan, now, I mean, it has to be over 30 years, right? I mean, about 30 years.
Year one when I broke into Marvel and DC comics.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Dan, when I got my first real gig at DC Comics, Dan was already the inker on the book that I was handed, so he was thrusted upon me. So I made it a point to like call up my inker, say, "Hey, how you doing?" And we started talking, and eventually became friends. And then I went to visit you in South Florida. But so I want to go before that, before your life changed after you met me, because I know that was a huge moment for you. Yeah. So, and by the way, folks, if you're wondering, this is how every conversation with Dan and I go. Okay, so we're very honest with each other, and too honest, and we critique each other's art very, very harshly. So be prepared for that, because I will be critiquing Dan's art as we show it. So little Dan Panosian, right? Now where were you born?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Right.
We moved to Florida when I was fairly young.
Okay. Wait, I'm going to stop you there for a second, because I forgot to say one other thing. After 30 years of knowing you, every once in a while you'll throw something out like, "Oh yeah, I did this," and I'm like, "Why didn't you?" I just like all these crazy jobs you've had and people that you know in your life. I'm like, I had no idea you did these things. So even the fact that you,
born.
Huh?
I was born.
Well, born in Cleveland, I had no idea. Yeah. So I just thought you were Floridian. All right, so from Cleveland, you go to Florida.
From Cleveland. So we were snowbirds, and I don't know why they decided Florida. I guess my dad was also an artist. I think he was art directing at a company called Harris Corporation, which employs like probably the entire county practically. So it was a big system shock to go from snow and sleds to surfboards and sand.
How old were you?
I think I was 9, maybe 9 years old.
Right, so old enough to know. Right.
Old enough to cry. I think I have some. Actually, comic books. The first day we were there, we were staying at some hotel, and I got a Thor comic book. And that's the first photo they took of us in over there. So it was interesting to see that comic books were always a part of my life. My dad loved them. He was a big fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he loved Daredevil. He loved Neil Adams' work. He loved Joe Kubert, Walt Simonson. He was a big fan of.
Why didn't your dad try to get into the business?
He did sports editorial artwork for like a Plain Dealer which is a
Okay.
big newspaper in
Oh
Cleveland.
yeah, it's a huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge paper in general. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was doing that sort of cartooning, and he was always trying to be a syndicated cartoon
Right.
artist.
Got
But
it.
he did love comics. Like he taught me, some of the first those big Treasury edition
Hmm?
comic books you see, and we'd go through those, and I'd read them like crazy, or he'd read them to me. I didn't
Yeah.
start reading. This is an interesting story, Joe. I didn't start reading until I was 14 years old. I couldn't read. So
Really? Was that just
no,
because you were lazy or you had an issue?
no, I just was bored. I just no, no. Anyhow, he read them to me. I'm
Like,
sure I was reading at the normal age, whatever, kindergarten or whatever.
yes. Right.
Um, but yeah, so no, he would. That was a really nice bonding moment.
Yeah.
He would bring me these comics, and sometimes he would come home from his office and he would draw a new page of a comic book, like basically it was a splash page, a
Mm.
children's book. So it was really interesting that he would take the time to do something like that.
Wow.
So it really inspired me. Like I try to
Yeah.
start doing my drawings.
Yeah, because I know in our conversations you have this sort of mixed relationship with your dad, like this,
Yeah, he
this
was
thing about
great.
trying to sort of prove yourself, right? In a lot of ways.
Always,
Yeah.
always trying to like he was a great dad for young kids. He was really. I think that the teenage years are kind of difficult for any parents,
Yeah. Well,
and
especially with someone like you, I can imagine it would have
yeah,
been
especially with someone like
horrible.
me.
Yeah.
I didn't make it easy, but he grew up during the Depression era, so it's kind of a tough era to grow
Mm.
up in. He was also a professional boxer before he was a professional artist and art director, and then
Mm.
eventually he owned his own ad agency. But I grew up with, well, I want to impress him by being able to draw as well as he can.
Yeah.
And of course, I was like, he loved boxing and fighting and martial arts, so I was like, oh, I gotta excel at those things. So.
Yeah. Seems like you've done a lot of those. Yeah, it seems like you're like a lot like a dad.
Yeah, I tried. Yeah, too bad he's
Yeah.
not around.
Yeah. So would you say he's the person that got you into comics?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Loved him, and out of that love, I developed I would walk around in a Batman or a Spider-Man costume pretty much every day until I was probably in the first grade.
You didn't send me those photos. I have photos of myself in red underwear in a cape. I could,
Yeah.
we could have
Yeah, but
shared
that's
those
you
photos.
like last week. That was, you sent me those.
I didn't
I
mean to
didn't
get
send
into the
those.
details of it, but yeah, that actually was. I just switch out the red shorts for different sizes. I get fatter or skinnier, or taller.
They look good.
Yeah, but look, I have good legs. What you have for
Yeah.
arms, I have pretty decent legs. I mean, we'll show that later.
I put up a picture recently from a
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
tour
got
we
it.
did, and people were commenting on the calf muscles.
Dude, I don't have calves. I have full grown cows. That's how strong my legs are, right?
Yeah.
So, so here you are. You're growing up in this artistic environment, and are you thinking of comics as a career at this point, or is it still? Because I have to tell you, my dad introduced me to comics as well, right? And he could draw, but he wasn't a professional artist, but he had skills, so he would show me a few things. But then he noticed that I had skills, so it was considering I was first generation born here, family of immigrants. Back in the day when I was growing up, early 70s, 60s to early 70s, the immigrant dream was become a doctor, lawyer,
Of
or an
course.
accountant, right? So did
Yeah.
your dad, was being an artist something that if you said, Dad, I want to be an artist, that would have been okay for him? Or would he have been
no.
like, you don't want this life?
Yeah, no, he's not happy about that. There was
Really?
like every time I thought about it, he's like, no, same with yours, because my dad was first generation.
Uh-huh.
My dad was Armenian. My mother is like Welsh and German.
So your dad was born
But
here.
he was first generation, and that generation was always about being a doctor or a lawyer.
Right.
And so he said you'd never want to be an artist,
Right.
even though he did fine as an artist. He just said it's a tough job. It's not a job. It's a career. You have to be passionate about
Yeah.
something like that. You don't become a musician because you're decent at the piano or you can play the guitar. Okay, you must love it. It's
Yeah.
in your blood.
Yeah. And it's funny, when we first met, I remember when we talked on the phone, I'm like, are you Armenian? Because my first girlfriend in high school was Armenian.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I had not met my then-to-be wife, who is Armenian. So I've sort of bookended my life,
Wow.
but I have a tremendous affection for the Armenian culture, and my daughter calls herself a Cubanian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is I can't imagine there's very many Cuban Armenian people out there. But
Wow.
she's one of them, or maybe the one.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah. So okay. So now so you're bitten by the comic bug.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an image here, right? Because you sent me this, and I'm like, again, these are the things that I find out about you that you're like, there's like layers to you, Dan, layers and layers, and one wouldn't think of it to talk to you because you seem pretty vapid most of the time, right? But there's layers to you. So you sent me this little vintage piece here. You're about these full figure drawings here. What is this? It looks like an ad, right? What is this?
So yeah, that's an ad in the back of Dragon magazine, which is a Dungeons and Dragons primarily magazine that you can find in almost all stores, not all of them. I mean, a big magazine shop would have it. And in order to buy these modules and game books for Dungeons and Dragons, I didn't have any money. I was barely making any money. Like,
how old were you? First of all, how old?
I was 14.
14. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So at 14, you're like, I'm going to go out there and make some bucks. You know?
Well, I just wanted to feed my Dungeons and Dragons fix.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll draw people's characters. I'll say, send a self-addressed stamped envelope, send it to me. I'll send it back with a character sheet. You fill that out, and I'll draw what your character looks like. And I started first at a local hobby shop or toy shop that sold Dungeons and Dragons books and everything. And then I thought, if I save up enough money, I can put an ad in this magazine. That's what I did.
Right. Wow.
And that really kind of taught me to draw. It forced me to, like, every day I came home from school, I started drawing. I met people like Brandon Peterson through that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Michael Linsner,
No
Cry for
kidding.
Dawn, and these guys were also my age, maybe a little bit older. I don't know, but they were certainly better artists than I was. But they thought I had like a full-fledged company, and they're like, I'd like to work for you.
That's great.
And I thought to myself, well, if I have Brandon Peterson or Joe Linsner, I said Michael for some reason. I think it's Joseph Michael Linsner.
Joseph, yeah, right.
Yeah, Joe drawing. I go, people are going to request those artists over me. I don't know if I could, put them in there. So in the company, Anvil Enterprises, I called it.
That's amazing. So
this is really geeky. Anvil Enterprises, Joe.
Yeah.
Because there's also a superhero role-playing game. Stood for American National Vigilante Intelligence League.
Listen, for a 14-year-old,
that's a lot of words strung together.
It's a lot of words. Pretty good. So at 14, you're doing this. You're obviously industrious. You're trying to make some money. I mean, how much did you make? What did you do with the money?
Before I could get a driver's license, I bought a car. So it was doing pretty well.
It's Florida. Nobody's going to pull you over.
Yeah.
Exactly. There could be a dog behind the wheel. That's all right. Yeah. He's in the lanes. He's fine. He's stopping at the stop sign.
It was a Mercury LN7 with, like, for that year, if you wanted that car and you wanted every single extra on it, this car had everything on it, and like louvers everywhere. The seats vibrated to the music.
Wow!
I slept in the car the first day I got it. I was like, because it was the only autonomy I had. Living at home. You're like, wait a minute, this is mine. If everything goes to hell, I can just live in this car. This is my new, sanctuary.
Yeah, I remember that feeling. I know we're off the beaten path here, but I remember that feeling of like when I got my first car. Right, I wasn't. I know you're a big car nut, right? And I grew into a bit of a car nut, but back then I didn't really see a need for it. I mean, I lived in Queens and I had the train and stuff, but then eventually, I started dating, and I'm like, I got to get to my girlfriend's house. So I ended up buying this really, really, really terribly beaten up Volkswagen Fastback. I don't know if you remember those cars. They were ugly.
Like 210? Oh no, that's a Datsun.
It's like if you took a Beetle and a Carmen Ghia and you beat the crap out of it and made it as ugly as possible. That's what the Fastback was like, right? And this car would not start if the weather was a little cold, right? I would literally have to park the car, make sure I parked the car in the morning in a spot where I knew that the sun would hit it in the morning, because if not, I'd have to get my friends to jump up and down on the bumper to get the gas tank. It was a weird thing. It was the only way the car would start. But if it was in the sunlight, it'd be fine.
That out though.
Huh?
It's interesting process how you would even figure that out, guys.
The hard way. We figured it out the hard way.
Start.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Figured it out the hard way. But I remember having that car the first day I got it. That night I stuck out into it and I just drove it, and I drove it as far as I could, and that feeling of like I could leave home at any time I wanted to. I could just go. Was incredible. It was my first feeling of autonomy. It's hard to explain. I'm sure a lot of people experienced this with their first car or just going on their first road trip. But it was a big deal. But you're a car nut, right? You're crazy about cars.
I love cars. I love like 60s era muscle cars, 60s,
right.
70s muscle cars.
Right. That's a good segue, because I'm gonna fast forward to something here, because let me find it. Okay,
Growing up in Cleveland, all my uncles, all my relatives, they were like high school kids. I was kind of a little kid, and they had these amazing, at that time they were probably new or fairly new cars, and they were always like, Camaros or Firebirds or Chevelles or Novas, but they were always souped up, and I mean they were just amazing vehicles.
Yeah, I remember
Batmobiles to me.
Yeah, my dad had a brand new Mustang, in the mid to late 60s, perfect. And then a Chevy Nova, and I was like, oh, this car's great. And then eventually I owned a Chevy Nova, and it was just a piece of junk, but it looked so cool. So speaking of your cars, so what is this? There was a show called Overhauling, right?
Yeah, there still is. They brought it back again.
These are the layers of you that I just find out about, right? So tell me, what was Overhauling, and because that's your car, right? That we're looking at right here.
Yeah, that's my car. Which one do you have up there?
I've got it. It's the cream colored Firebird. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a cream colored Firebird. So I bought that in '99, and Dave Johnson, who's this awesome artist who's been very helpful in my career, and
awesome artist, terrible person.
Oh yeah, awful person. Like if you met him, he's awful, and you don't want to talk to him, and perhaps even want to run. But decent artist though.
Yeah.
But so he always had this idea. He's like, if I could just find somebody's crappy car to get on Overhaul, and Dave is a very generous guy, so he'd been talking to me about this for a while. My son is my wife's pregnant with my son, and about a few weeks before she gave birth, a friend of mine, Dave had contacted Josh Barnett, his former heavyweight champion of the UFC and Pancrase, and this guy's just a beast of a man, but he loves comic books, oddly enough. He probably knows more about comic books than I do. So we knew Josh, and Josh came to me and he goes, I'm going to be on the cover of UFC magazine. Could I borrow your car? We're going to put it in the background. It's a muscle car. And I said, sure. He goes, you can show up, you can watch us do the filming, and it'll be great. I was like, fantastic. So I go with them. I sit down. They have this nice photo shoot. Ariane Celeste is there, who's one of the top ring girls for the UFC, and she's got a bucket with her. So I think, she's going to, it's going to be like a kind of a sexy shot. She's going to be washing the car. I'm like, well, I could use a wash this car, So Josh has a sledgehammer in his hand.
Right.
And sometimes when you're exercising at some of these gyms, you'll use a sledgehammer on a huge tractor tire.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, Josh and I have worked out before. I've seen him, work out with a sledgehammer.
Right, but also, Josh carrying a sledgehammer. Nobody's going to tell him to put it down, right?
No. That comes into play later. Yeah. So he's got a sledgehammer. He's awfully close to my car. Next thing I know, Ariane throws red paint on my car, and then Josh takes a sledgehammer and goes right through my window.
Nice.
And there's secret cameras everywhere, and they're filming me. They're trying to film my reaction. So I just have this quizzical look on my face. I'm not angry or upset. I think to myself, well, Josh is a good friend. I must have signed something, a waiver that they're going to replace the windshield. The car could use a paint job. They're going to repaint it. I go, I can't imagine that this would either just like, we're demolishing your car. We knew it was a piece of junk anyhow. Thanks for letting us borrow it and destroy it.
Right.
So the producers later, when they let me know, like, well, we thought you'd be upset, like you'd want to kill Josh. And that comes back to what you were saying. I'm like, under normal circumstances, that wouldn't go over well.
Right.
And now he's got a sledgehammer in his hand. Right. So I'm like, what am I going to do about it? Right.
Yeah.
So
and
it was funny.
Any normal human, you would run after them and knock them down.
I would run after them. Yeah.
But with Josh, you're like, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Tear the car.
Hi,
So
Elena. I'll call up my wife and cry. Or
right.
something.
So now what happens? So they beat your car
They
to a pulp, right?
they beat my car to a pulp. I love this car. I'd had it forever, and they can Josh, Dave Johnson, and primarily Chip Foose, this amazing car guy. Like he redesigns these cars,
Mm-hmm.
and he's known for like these amazing wheels he puts on the cars. They completely redid it. You know, there's
Right.
some of those TV shows where they take your car and you're like I own a pizza shop, and they go, guess what? We made your glove box a toaster oven. You
Right.
know, you can make pizzas in your car. It's like, these zany things.
Yeah.
It was not that type of show. It's the type of
Right.
show where you go on there and it's an unbelievable restoration.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture of it here. Here it is now. That's your baby now.
Oh yeah,
Gorgeous.
I mean it's unbelievable. Like I couldn't. When you buy an old car, you're always going, if I save up, I can do this to it. I can put
Right.
this in. I can do that. So Josh and I would be working out in the gym in the mornings, well before this thing. They destroyed my car to rebuild it, like the $6 million man.
Mm-hmm.
He would ask me, he goes, well, if you could do, because he's a car buff,
Yeah.
and he races cars too. He's basically he's like the Steve McQueen of the world.
Right.
But so we talk about all these modifications, and so when Chip Foose and everybody and his whole amazing team are done with the car, it has everything I've ever wanted. The car is like 615 horsepower.
Wow.
It's unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
It says Mitra on there, and that's because I love Conan so much, because Conan would always say buy Crom or buy Mitra aisle, and he never finishes a sentence.
Yeah.
He's too busy bossing
Yeah.
So if the car is named Mitra, they put that on there. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
It's
I mean,
my
I went to visit you several months ago, and I don't think that car's left that garage in years.
I don't. That's the only shame. I don't drive it as much,
Right.
because I bought the car for I think under 10 grand originally, and now who knows what that car is worth. So but then again, I live in LA. Like every other car is a Lamborghini or Bentley, so
No,
it might fit in.
it's gorgeous. I'm jelly, as you like to say, Dan. So all right, so let's go back to young Dan Panosian now, right? This is still before you even get into the art world, right? So you're growing up in Florida. You end up having like a modeling career, right? I'm going to show you a little. Look at that mullet, man. Look at that mullet. Wow. I mean, I had a mullet during that time, but it was not. I mean, that's just glorious, man.
I had mullet goals
Yeah.
at that age.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw Roadhouse too many times, maybe, and had an effect on me.
So,
Patrick,
and by the way, this is one of the few shots of you not wearing a sleeveless shirt, right? Because that was a thing for you. No matter where you were, it was middle of winter.
The other side, the reason they took the picture on that side was because the other side of my face, I had a black eye.
Okay. Right.
So,
so this
we
is
had to make sure
so how did you end up in the modeling world? How did that happen?
It wasn't. I mean, when we like
Don't
to
be
kid around
embarrassed
about it.
about it. Don't be embarrassed.
I did some modeling for like wetsuit companies, and
Right.
it'd be in Surfer magazine, and probably some cheesy calendar stuff, and little tiny gigs, because I wasn't from a big city, so the type of jobs I would get would mostly be in the surfing community.
Right.
I wasn't a surfer, by the way.
All right. Well, then
I was a lousy surfer.
That's fine. But you did post a photo. You don't even know I have this one because we didn't talk about it. But you did. Oh, here's a photo, a Polaroid of you. You're always sleeveless, man. What is up? What is up with that?
What Polaroid?
It's a Polaroid you posted yourself on Facebook. You like posting pictures of yourself sleeveless with
sound like me.
With the gun showing, right? But then you posted this another sort of T-shirt shot, right? Here you are again, right? That I had a lot of Photoshop fun with, right? But I don't know if it's just in the same photo shoot or whatever, but it was just a plain white T-shirt, So I decided that all right, let's have a little fun with this, and what do I think Dan was thinking? So I just gave you a little Justin Bieber T-shirt there. I thought that was more in keeping with your personality. But then I found another great T-shirt, which was the hairy chest T-shirt, right? Which is just shocking. I can't even look at that for too much longer. But
maybe that
but you make yourself an object of ridicule with this stuff, Dan. You really, really do.
And here I keep thinking I'm elevating my career. I don't have the PR agent I want necessarily. Like, I'll do this. I'll put this photo out there.
No, you need a serious PR agent, because you're doing it all wrong, man. You're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
So now, so how do you get into the world of comics? Because I remember around the time that I decided that, well, maybe I want to make something of this art career. It wasn't comics necessarily. I
You
went
were in a
to
band, right?
I was a musician
Yeah.
for a very, very long time, but I also had this degree in art, in illustration, and I wanted to be an illustrator, do advertising work, that kind of stuff. So I distinctly remember going to an ad agency, and they were looking for some comic book like designs, and I'm like, oh, I remember comics from when I was a kid. Maybe I could do this job. So I remember talking to them and coming in with a portfolio of stuff that was absolutely dreadful. I actually still have the samples. I should send them to you someday, because you and I have talked about this and we can't remember exactly where it was. But I remember being there, right? And the agency, um, in my memory, the agency was, I'd say, primarily female run. And so here I am showing my portfolio to a gal, and she's telling me what she's looking for, what she's not looking for. And then I look over, because there's this like group of like 20 women talking to another artist. And all I remember was this guy with a great glorious mullet, a tank top, and you were, as I always remember you were oiled up, like bodybuilder oiled up, right? And just like gleaming. And all these
Yeah.
girls are like, and I'm like, well, I certainly didn't get the job, regardless, right? And I remember seeing you in a couple other locations, like we were sort of hitting the same advertising spots at some point. And every time I saw you, and this is New York, every time I saw you,
Yeah.
sleeveless shirt
Hmm.
and baby oil. But you said it was Coca-Cola and baby oil, right?
Well, that was I don't know about this whole oil business.
You were, dude, you were oiled, you were gleaming, right?
Well, I mean, you know what, maybe that was just the light hitting me, Joe, and it
No,
looks
no,
like
no,
you'd
no.
never seen something. You'd never see something so magnificent. You're like, oh my God, he must be glowing.
You knew that, you were doing the bodybuilder thing. I mean, at that point, you work
I
out,
love the outfit. I love the outfit to go to impress people, like a professional
right?
New York setting, and showing up in a tank top.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
So,
I can't believe I did that.
oh
Now,
yeah,
now I never wear sleeveless shirts. Thanks. My wife's like, nope, all tank tops out.
yeah.
They're gone.
Smart move.
Uh,
Smart move. I mean, you still work out, but back then you were working out. You know what I mean? So,
oh,
so
it's
you were
always
you
hit
were
the
you were
gym.
much bigger. Not as big as Josh, of course, but definitely much
Yeah.
bigger. So okay. So how did you get into comics then? Because again, you're an industrious guy. You're hitting the streets. You come to New York, right? Were you
Yeah.
commuting from
Well,
Florida?
yeah, I was in Florida in that company, Anvil Enterprises. Through that, I had met this one guy, Joe Naftali, who lived in New York, and he said he had gotten a few illustrations done by me for his Dungeons and Dragons characters. He said, you know what? I'm writing this new comic book. It's called The Dark, and I've hired Larry Stroman, Mark Bright, Aldrin Awe, all these Scott Hanna, all these different guys who are working in the industry today to draw his comic book. He goes, I'd like you to, draw a story and maybe ink. I think it was Mark Bright of all people, like, a fantastic artist,
Yeah.
and he was doing Green Lantern at the time. Or maybe he was even doing Iron Fist and Power Man. I don't know.
Mm.
Or for a while he drew Iron Man for Marvel Comics. So I did these things. I didn't think much of it. I was working, all sorts of crazy jobs in Florida. I was doing construction. I was working as a waiter. I was working as a busboy. I was outside. I was a doorman at a nightclub. All these little crazy odds and ends jobs that weren't really where I wanted to be necessarily.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I'd always thought, well, one day I'm going to take this comic book thing seriously, and I'm going to be a comic book artist. And so he said, well, why don't I finished this job up, and I didn't think much of it. And he calls up and he says, there's a New York comic book convention. Back then it was the Greenberg shows at
Right.
Across from Penn Station. He
That's
said,
the
why don't you
name.
come out?
Jimmy was on. He couldn't remember the name of the shows, and I couldn't either. It was Greenberg. That's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they were great shows. And I went out. I flew out there. I had $600 to my name. I flew out there. I stayed with his family. He's an exceptionally nice family. He was a very generous, nice guy, a little bit younger than me. They lived right there in Greenwich Village. I had never been in a big city my entire life.
Right.
So I showed up, and I'm seeing all these humongously large buildings. I think the tallest building where I grew up in Florida was maybe 4 stories high. And that was like, oh, look at that. We're downtown now. So New York was a big system shock for me.
Yeah. Imagine.
And imagine I had to buy a jacket. I couldn't walk around in tank tops every day, although I still did.
Did those jackets get
So I went to the reefer.
kind of greasy on the inside because of all the oil?
I would grease the inside of the fabric, so when I took off the jacket, it would be glorious.
Smart.
Well,
Yeah, and the Coca-Cola was for the tan, right? Because it would tinge your skin. Is that would?
That's a weird kind of like ghetto Melbourne thing. But you'd mix Coca-Cola with baby oil, so that the caramel in the Coca-Cola would help dye your skin while you're getting tan. It's no sunscreen to speak of.
Yeah, you're just frying. Yeah.
You're frying your skin off.
Yeah. The things we do for vanity, Dan. So
would show with these samples,
yeah.
and I said, well, I got to hit the bricks. I got to meet some of these people. So I meet Neil Adams, and the day one, and there's a big long line. I showed him the samples, and they were kind of influenced. My actual penciling and inking samples were kind of influenced by Neil Adams and some of the people he was influenced. So they weren't great samples, but the inking samples were great because I was working over Mark Bright. So people thought I was already in the business. And I had enough experience inking. I was a big fan of Terry Austin, Dick Giordano, Tony DeZugna, Bob Layton, all these different great inkers and finishers. So the inks looked great. And so Neil said, okay, well, show up Monday. I got some work for you. I was like, oh my God, it's Neil Adams. Then I met Walt Simonson. And Walt said, what book are you working on? And I said, I'm not. And he said, I'm going to call up Ralph Macchio at Marvel Comics. And Monday I went in and saw Ralph Macchio. And they started handing me Thor backups and Doctor Strange backups. So it was trial by fire. The only thing that was a little bit nerve-wracking for me is I did everything in like markers, these pens that John Byrne had recommended in the back of Fantastic Four. It was a Stadler Mars Graphic 3000. And they were flexible, like they weren't permanent markers. They would eventually fade to purple, like a lot of Gil Kane's inking. But they were kind of cool, and John Byrne inked the end of his run on Fantastic Four with them. So I was like, I have to have these. This is what you need. But when I got to Marvel, I was seeing all the original artwork. I was like, I need to actually use a real brush, and so that was the first time I really used a real brush as at Marvel. So I went out and went to Pearl Paint in Canal Street, which is sadly no longer there.
No longer there. It's gone.
Huge 7-story art store. It was if you're an artist, that was the art store in New York City. But yeah, it was trial by fire. And then DC Comics, I don't know. I don't remember what brought me over there. But yeah, I was working on Spelljammer.
So how... By the way, Dan, I don't know if you have headphones handy because I'm hearing myself echo. So I don't know if you either have to lower your volume or if you had headphones. If you don't worry about it. It's not terrible. So how long into your career did you finally had the big breakthrough and the pleasure of inking over my horrific pencils on Spelljammer?
Well, I started on Spelljammer with issue number 1. I don't know what issue you were on. You were probably
5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Yeah.
So maybe 6 months in to me working at DC. And I started at DC pretty early on when I lived in New York there.
Right.
When I lived in New York, I stayed with Joe Naftali's family. So it was, he's great family, great location. Mm-hmm. It's a dream location, Greenwich Village, right in the heart of it. It was nice.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, it was great.
Well, listen, and at that point, I was living in New York on my own, and my family had moved to Florida, and then so we started talking. You're like, oh yeah, I'm down in South Florida. I'm like, hey, we should hang out.
And we did.
And we did.
Miami nights.
Yeah, many times. But I remember going to your part of Florida, and going to visit your part. You were with a roommate at that point, weren't you? Were you living with a roommate or on your own?
I don't necessarily remember because I was back and forth to New York so much.
Right.
But
I remember being taken by the furniture in your apartment. You had this bachelor pad.
It's about as classy as my tank tops, probably.
Dude, the best part about it was that I walk in here, and again, this is Dan Panosian, prime workout, bodybuilding era, greased up, the whole thing. I get there, you're already oiled up, the hair is spiked, oh, it's going, man. You're ready to go out. We're two single guys. We're gonna hit the strip in South Florida, and I walk into your apartment, and I'd say 90% of the furniture was built on big cases of protein powder. There were jugs of protein powder
It was. I did
everywhere,
have a lot of
and then
protein
there was
powder.
cases of protein powder. So it was like these like 3 or 4 cases put together, and like maybe a blanket over it. That's your coffee table, right? You may have had a couch, but all the rest of the
Yeah.
furniture was just boxes of protein
bed was,
powder.
yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, all right.
Yeah. I like that you remained friends with me. Or
Of course,
maybe you
sir,
wanted
yeah,
some
yeah.
protein powder. You wanted a
You know,
discount.
I'm true to my friends. So
Yeah. No, I was so skinny. That's why I started working out. I, a little mouthy, and my mouth was getting me into trouble in Florida, which not a good thing. And
yeah,
it's like, I got to start working out.
yeah,
This is not, you know,
yeah.
I need
So
some kind of game plan here.
So I move on from Spelljammer. You move off to Spelljammer. Our careers go in sort of different ways,
Yeah, you got some better inkers than me, I noticed.
yeah,
You went from me to P. Craig Russell.
I've
And
been very, very fortunate in all
yeah.
the inkers I've had in my life, and it was great that you and I started together because it's created this friendship that we've had for decades at this point. I've seen you grow up from a little t-shirt wearing, oily.
Yeah, I got sleeves.
Yeah, you got sleeves now, a family. So it's been a lot of fun to watch you grow up and out of those trends. And I did grow out my mullet too. I think I was past my mullet by that point. By the time I met you, but I was really impressed with yours. So now you start doing some work for Image, right? You go to because by the time we meet up at the Deathmate tour, you've already been doing some stuff at Extreme and stuff, right? Tell us how you got into there and because you received some valuable training in that time.
Yeah, what happened was I was doing backups over Mark Bagley. Mark Bagley was not ready for primetime Marvel, as in he was not ready for his own book yet at Marvel. But he had won the Marvel tryout contest. So they were giving them some work, and I was inking them. But I was very influenced because I would see the pages coming in from Will Spertaccio and Scott Williams at the time, and they were doing a book called Legion of the Night. And Scott was inking in a very different way, very influenced Jim Lee's, Scott Williams, and Will's kind of developed this different style of drawing and inking, So I was studying that stuff because it had a little essence of Terry Austin in there.
Yeah.
And Ralph Macchio saw me studying this stuff. And so when the X-Men started getting very, very popular, Scott Williams was like, overrun with inking Jim, with inking Wills. Wills was on X Factor, and Jim Lee was on Uncanny. Or maybe he was just finishing up Punisher and getting to Uncanny. But I could see that these guys were going to be moving on to the X books. I was like, this team of people, Homage Studios, was, going to be the next thing. So Ralph was like, well, who's going to finish inking Legion of the Night? We have all these Wills pages. So they gave me the Wills pages and said, here's some Xeroxes of Scott and Wills doing it. Try to do it like this. And so nobody was trying to ape that style at all. And I was willing to and happy to do it. Yeah. And I did it. And then I started applying that sort of finish technique over Mark Bagley's work. Rob Liefeld saw that. And he was getting ready to start Image Comics, but he was still working on X-Force. And so he said, Dan, I want you to ink X-Force. And that kind of changed my life. I was inking, I think, just the last issue of X-Force. And then before I finished it, he goes, Dan, I want you to come out to California and work on, whatever. He didn't have anything yet.
Right.
But I flew out there, and then Mark Silvestri was doing Cyberforce at the time, and Mark wanted me to ink Cyberforce. So I'd done a lot of in between the time when I actually moved out to California, I worked on a lot of X-Men titles or X-book titles for Bob Harris. So I moved out to California. I was like, I'm going to do it. It's a dream. I thought LA would look like New York City, but with palm trees and a beach. And if anybody watching this has ever been to LA, it's nothing like that at all. I watched a lot of episodes of Chips growing up. It was that way, But it's great. And I moved there, and the Valiant Comics, where we both worked before we really knew each other. Valiant had teamed up with Image Comics, and they did a thing called the Deathmate Tour. And I'm sure the story was incredible. I'm sure it was something that you could read and read again. It was like the Watchmen of our era. Right?
Yeah. So, but the Deathmate Tour they had a great promotional stunt, which was or the Deathmate book. They created the Deathmate tour, right? So Steve Mazarsky, who was the president of Valiant at that time, his previous career was he was a manager of rock and roll bands like the Allman Brothers,
Kiss.
Aerosmith. No, not Kiss. No,
Not Kiss. Oh, it was
Aerosmith,
Aerosmith. Yeah.
Cyndi Lauper, very very early on. So he had this rock and roll background, and he had this idea of doing this thing called the Deathmate tour that would start. There'd be two tour buses. One would start, I believe, as far north in California as no. I think one of them started somewhere in the middle of the country, maybe Chicago. There were two buses. One would start in Northern California, and forget where the other one would start, but they would then travel across the country, hitting comic book shops, and then culminating in San Diego, California. Right, that was the end of the tour. So you and I and Jimmy,
Yeah.
J. Scott
J.
Campbell,
Scott Campbell.
Brendan Peterson, John Ostrander. We were all part of this bus, gaggle of idiots, and
Yeah.
but we had the best guy on our tour bus, which was this guy named
Yeah.
Derek, and I cannot remember his
Is
last
that
name.
his name?
I think it was
The
Derek.
guy
Was his
looked
first-
like the guy looked like a tough guy version of Rod Stewart. That's what I
Yeah, no,
remember.
but he was the quintessential. I mean, he had been the road manager for some huge bands. So he told us on the outright, he was a Scottish dude, and I'm not going to do the accent, but he was a Scottish dude, and he told us on no uncertain terms, I am not going to treat you guys any different than I would treat the Rolling Stones on this bus. When I say the bus is leaving, you better be on the bus 10 minutes before it leaves, or we leave without you, right?
Yes.
Now, outside of
Very
that whole
stern.
outside of that drill sergeant thing, he was a awesome guy to hang out with, and he had great stories. So we would ride on this bus, and the bus it was a rock and roll tour bus, right? It had the TV,
It was the
it
Black
had,
Crows tour bus, I think.
that's right, yeah. And it had
Yeah.
all the amenities, so we could watch videos, and we could, it had a fully stocked bar, you name it. And you at the time, you were going through you had just broken up with your girlfriend. It was a very, very serious
She
girlfriend.
probably broke up with me or something like that.
All right, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but Jimmy and I think were really, really helpful in. We won't get into the details of this. I think Jimmy and I were really, really helpful in talking you through
tremendously.
this. I'm sure we made you feel worse at the time, but I think months later you could thank us, and today you could thank us for that. So
It's taken over
you're welcome,
30
Dan.
years.
Yeah.
It's taken about 30 years, and now I think I can thank you. But yeah, it was like if Dear Abby had like an evil, cruel aunt,
Right.
who hated you.
Right.
It was like having that sort of therapist.
Right.
It was
So-
fantastic. So I remember sitting there almost, just depressed and angsty because I was, so young.
Yeah.
And you and Jimmy with your evil Cheshire, cat grin on your face, coming up with helpful scenarios to help me, realize
Get past it.
life goes on from now.
Yeah, it's a family show, so
Very
we,
helpful.
So anyway, so this is one of the shots from the tour, and there you were. You every time the camera came out, of course you're sleeveless, you're oiled up. Look at you, you're glistening there. So you're
Well,
flexing.
the sun's hitting me.
Yeah. So you're flexing, and I decided, okay, well, I'm going to flex too. I'm going to show my best part, which were my cats. But that was a really, really fun tour, and
You had a great time.
and it was also fun because you had a baby Campbell. I mean, Jeff was literally like just starting out, and we're looking at his stuff going, wow, this kid's got something, man. He's really, really, really good. Yeah.
It was fantastic. I wish Alex Gardner was on that tour. That would have been cool. His inker at the time, who's also Alex. I don't know if you kept up with Alex Gardner's career, but he's amazing. He does digital painting.
Really?
And it is painting. Like I used to have a thing like, digital artists, they're not like real painters, but
Right.
you look at the tools and how people craft these paintings. It's amazing work.
Yep.
And now digital painting, you put it side by side with the real painting, you can't tell the difference. And he's incredible. And
Wow,
it's
I'll have
another.
to check it out. Definitely have to check it out. So Dan, speaking of inking, right? I know you set up a little bit thing. So you know this because I talk to you all the time. I never learned to ink, right? I'm just starting to get into it now, but I'm terrible at it. So it takes me forever to even warm up and get to it. And I marvel at watching you ink, right? Because you're just, it's almost unconscious for you the way you do it. So you set up a little bit of drawing there, and hopefully you can show the crew here
Oh,
who's watching. We got people
see,
watching
yeah, I was going to do.
from all over the world. So if you want to switch cameras and it shows a little bit of what you're doing, I'm going to continue showing some artwork and some stuff while you're drawing and maybe get to the questions. But I don't want to miss out on the inking. Okay, so you're switching over.
All right.
Let's see.
So there you can see it, right?
Yep, can see it. Actually,
Kind of.
can you move it to your right? Yeah, perfect. All
That
right.
work better?
Yep, that'll work
All right.
better. I'm going to go full screen here on you. Hang on a
This is a
second.
character, Joe.
Yeah.
It's a mutant character that Marvel has,
Okay.
and I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with it, but he used to be called Weapon X.
Mm.
So he's
Yeah.
kind of a. I mean, hopefully he takes off.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is kind of a pseudo brush pen. I should probably use this side. I don't know.
Okay.
I always say that when it comes to inking, it's more of a understanding the tools
Right.
than actually.
Now, what pen are you using? Because that looks like something you haven't recommended to me. You see,
This is
I
a Kuretake also. It's the same brand that I did recommend, but this is the elite brand that I would not.
Oh.
I would. You're not ready for it, Joe.
Dan,
You're fantastic. Yeah.
why wouldn't you recommend
maybe
the elite? Well, what makes it elite?
Well, look. It's multicolored. Here's the regular one. That's just blue. Look at this one.
Okay.
Makes sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense to that. Well, what's the difference? Seriously.
And all kidding aside, this one has more of a flexible point,
Uh-huh.
and I think this one is even more flexible. So, but this is a Pentel brush pen.
That I have. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
control to work with that.
Yeah, this one is basically like a real brush.
Yeah.
It's very. I don't know if you can see it necessarily
Yeah, I see
on
it.
here.
Definitely see it.
But yeah, it's very, very great. I love using paint, and I'll probably use paint on this piece in a little bit. But this is kind of, I don't know. There's something fun about using these because it feels like a marker. I don't know. But that Anvil Enterprises is funny. Oddly enough, it really helped me to become faster and more confident with the brush line.
Right.
So I owe a lot to that.
So now, I don't know if people.
This is a finer pen.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that's a Kuretake again.
This is a Kuretake, but this is
where you get into the detail with it.
this is like we'll put this little eye in. Logan it's unusual for him, but he's pissed.
Yeah.
He's upset.
Well, just so people know, because I don't think a lot of people know, but you also had a career as a hold on a second, as a cosplayer here, right? You were a cosplayer for a while.
Oh yeah, professional cosplayer.
Yeah, I mean that was a good living for you for a bit, right? But you always had this. You've always had this love for Logan, right?
Yeah.
So we're just marveling at.
Is that from a convention?
You sent me the photo, dude.
Joe, I'm trying to give the illusion like I'm just this fantastic.
These are your photos,
Well, it could be. No, I did dress up in Halloween. I think I sent you two. So I think I sent you one from a convention and one.
This is a convention where you were
Halloween.
you were cosplaying at the con. So you go off and you have this career, right? After Death Day, right? You also inked John Romita Jr., right, on some Uncanny X-Men stuff, right?
A lot of great artists.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad. I had this illusion that because of inking these fantastic artists, like I was always paired with great artists, that sometimes an artist, when they're running a little bit late, they'll turn in breakdowns,
right?
And you get to do what's called finishes. And so I would do finishes on some people. I was thinking, wow, I'm getting better and better. I'm working with these amazing artists, and you get the illusion that you're like, wow, I must be an amazing artist by virtue of just. It doesn't work that way, sadly.
Yeah.
When you start with a blank page, I got that reality thrust upon me very quickly when I worked for Rob, and he's like, "How would you like to draw a profit?" And I'm like, "Of course I can draw a full comic book. I've never done that before, but I'll just do that." But yeah, I was fortunate enough. John Romita's, one of the all-time best.
Yeah. So now, so then there's a period where you kind of just disappear from comics, right?
Yeah.
You know what? So what do you? I mean, you left comics and then you went to work in different portions of the art field. So, but what facilitated you, or what made you get to that point where you're like, I think I'm kind of done here for a while, or was the decision I'm done here forever?
Did you ever see Ace Ventura: Pet Detective?
Yes,
Remember in the first movie, he's a regular pet detective.
I only saw the second one. I didn't see the first one.
Well, that's where this is going.
Okay,
So in the second one,
right.
he's done all the wonderful things in the first one, which
Yeah.
is, you heard probably every friend of yours is like, we got to see this together, and
Hmm.
mass people coming in to see Pet Detective 2. He's off in the Himalayan mountains finding himself. So
Right.
I had to go find myself, like Ace Ventura, and I don't know. I think because my dad was a graphic artist, he was a
Hmm.
commercial artist. I had a little bit of background in doing commercial art,
Right.
and also he had just recently passed away. So I think it was me discovering, am I drawing comics because I like them, or
Hmm.
was I doing it because my father did it?
Right.
And I eventually, of course, came back to comics.
Yeah. So
One of the first.
what were you doing to pay the rent at that point?
Well, I was working. I went immediately. I went to DreamWorks.
Hmm.
A friend had said, "Okay, there's a gig opening up there." It was a character design gig at
Yeah.
in their video game
Hey
department.
Dan, can you
Yeah,
draw and talk at the same time, or do you want I got the camera on your board and you're like this, you're crossing your hands and people watching this are going, is this dude going to finish this thing? So go ahead,
yeah. I'm not a
DreamWorks.
hand model.
Right.
I'm just,
I mean, clearly not.
exactly. No, not with hands like
Yeah.
these. Um, yeah, so I went over there and I was showing them my comic book samples, and of course, comic book samples aren't video game character design samples or even like animation samples. But
Right.
when you're working in this business, you're thinking, well, I have to draw everything. I'm drawing backgrounds. I'm drawing all these different styles. I'm inking over people. Not everybody draws the same. So I thought, well, I'm pretty versatile. I'll be able to do this. But 9 times out of 10, when you show your samples to an editor, they want to see something very specific.
Right. Yeah.
And I did not have specific samples to show him. So he said, no, great comic book stuff, but not applicable for this. Thanks for coming in. And I really wanted this job. I'm not working in comics. I was doing a little bit of illustration for Muscle and Fitness, but not a whole lot. So I said, well, why don't you give me pretend you just hired me. I go, what would you be hiring me for? Just maybe give me that assignment, and I'll come back in a week with the work done. And he's like, thought about it, and he's like, well, I guess it doesn't hurt anything. You don't have to pay me. It's not, I just
Yeah.
want to learn. This will be great for me. This is something I want to do anyhow. And I came back and I became the lead character designer on the video game. It
Cool.
was called Fu. And
Right.
Fu was basically what became Kung Fu Panda.
What?
So yeah,
You see, this is what I mean, right? Okay, so I kind of knew you worked at DreamWorks. I didn't know this part of it. All right,
Yeah.
so it became okay.
Yeah, so basically, the game, we were developing the game, and what's cool about working in some of these big studios is they'll put they'll put your artwork, they'll blow it up, and they'll put it up on the walls and for inspiration for the other artists and the rest of the team to kind of see. So one day Steven Spielberg was in the offices and he said, "Oh my God, this is awesome! What is this? And we're going to have to do something with this." Blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And 10 years later,
Right.
Kung Fu Panda is born because it was a game about, we had designed the panda.
Yeah.
Another guy who was doing Alien Legion was also, God, I forget, Frank Scirocco. Frank Scirocco was on the project too, and it was really cool. So he saw this stuff. The game play tested horribly because it was this tiny little 8-bit game, and it's a martial arts fighting game. So nobody wants to see, these little tiny guys fighting with 3 moves like punch, kick. You want to have a whole arsenal of moves like Mortal Kombat or Tekken. So the game didn't do so hot, and I thought, well, that's it. That was done and over with. And but later on, I'm doing storyboards. I'm still not back in comic books, and I'm storyboarding some this panda, and I'm like, man, that looks like the panda I created for Thai food, and that looks like this character from Thai. Like they're all those characters.
Right.
So I called them up and I said, "What is this?" Like I go, "Who owns this property that we're working on?" They go, "DreamWorks." I'm like, "Oh my god, it's they
Yep.
actually, that's how long sometimes these things take. Where
Yeah.
they always do these stories about Hollywood where it takes forever to make these movies, but I guess it really does.
Right. So how close were the final designs of the movie to what you had created?
Well, I always tell this story, and first of all, it's work for hire, so
Well, yeah,
you know that going in, and
yeah.
everyone goes, "Well, you designed Kung Fu Panda, you must be filthy rich." That movie is like a $3 billion movie, all total.
Yeah.
And I say it this way, I'm like, if you gave that assignment to any comic book artist or animation guy and said, draw a panda, with a sword or like a kung fu outfit,
Hmm?
it's relatively going to come back the same way from most people. I mean, there's going
Right.
to be variations on the style, but for the most part, it's going to look the way it's going to look. And, it looks pretty close. I have to say,
Right.
it's
Oh,
pretty much that
cool.
design, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, nobody could have done it.
Right. Right. No, that's not what I was asking. I was just asking
Uh,
because yeah, I mean anybody could have done what you did, Dan.
it's still,
Yeah. Yeah. So I because I'm sure people are wondering as they're watching you ink. I noticed you did not use a French curve for those claws,
I
right?
hate using, because my inking was so technical when I was working on X-Men and those
Right.
books. There's French curves, and I don't know how many people have inked on your show. There's all
Only
these.
one. Well, actually, no.
Oh,
Well, Bernard did digital,
didn't
but yeah,
didn't Ryan was inking.
yeah.
Ryan Stegman.
He was curveless and rulerless. Yeah.
Yeah. How
So
was he wearing a tank top though?
he was not. He was not.
So
So
this is a French curve,
right.
and this helps. This helps make this great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have a real problem
So,
using the French
but
curve.
here's my question for you. So, if this was, so you're doing this sketch, you're doing this quick sketch for us here and inking it. But if this was, let's say, a cover you were doing for Marvel, would you still do it freehand or would you use the curve?
No, I do it freehand.
You would do it freehand. Okay. See, I just don't have the control. I'd be whiting out all over the place. But there's a
Well,
big
that's the beautiful
difference.
thing about Photoshop. I do take these drawings and then I'll come back in
Oh, you
and
cheat. So
well,
it's
I'll come
kind of
back
like
in
he
and
was.
I'll like I don't want to use that. That's another Scott Williams thing. He would never use.
Hang on. I'm going to split screen because I want people to see the disappointment in my face. You go back in Photoshop and you fix. Oh,
I'll
oh.
take that. Sorry, Joe.
It's okay. It's okay.
A
That's
lot
why
of
you're not using your real.
revelations.
Oh my God! Wait. Oh, we're going to talk about this on Thursday night too when we do drink and draw.
Uh,
But anyway, this is turning out outstanding. So for the figure, did you just draw that out of your memory, use some photograph, or did you take a photo of yourself? I know
this
I'm
I
not
love
joking.
boxing.
I know you photograph yourself for a lot of the Wolverine stuff and Conan stuff. So
Yeah, that's what all the mirrors are for here.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
standing posed a lot.
yeah.
My wife will come in and say, what is going on here? And I'm like, this is how art happens.
I used to back in the day before computer cams. I used to do that old animator's trick where I had a mirror in front of my drawing board, right? Because it's the best way to get
Mhm.
expressions. And I remember one day I'm drawing at Marvel and I'm literally drawing Wolverine, and I've got like my fist up to my face and I'm growling into this mirror.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, the president of Marvel, a gentleman by the name of Alan Fine, walks into my right, just walks right through my door.
Oh, I know him.
And goes,
Yeah.
"Hey Joe," and I love Alan. He's a great guy. And he says, "Hey
Yeah.
Joe," and I'm like, "Her," and he's like, "What are you?" Hang on, I got to go to the split screen so people can see. So I'm sitting going, "Her, hi," and so I had to explain. I had to explain to my boss exactly, that I wasn't having a seizure at the table. I was actually modeling for Wolverine. And then he came around and he was so inquisitive about the stuff that we were doing. It was awesome to explain it to him. But that's happened to me several times in the Marvel offices where people are like, "What are you doing?" But now with the computer cam, I don't have to sit there for that long.
Yeah, I still have a little mirror number 111 over here, so I can do it for expressions.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
so
but
then
yeah,
so now you and I, right? So we see each other at conventions and stuff like that, and you got our separate ways, right? We have families, all that sort of stuff, and then we have a unique run-in, right? You keep drawing. I'm going to tell this story.
right.
So several years ago, uh, I get a call out of the blue. It's a number I don't recognize, and I pick it up, and it's like, "Hey, mate, it's Hugh Jackman," and I'm like, "What? I've never spoken to Hugh Jackman," and clearly, whenever I get a crank call, I always think it's Mark Miller. It's a long story. Mark has a long history of trying to prank people, and I have been his great white whale. He's never been able to prank me, so immediately I think, this is Mark. But we get to talking, I'm like, oh my God, this is really Hugh Jackman. So he asked me if I, he'd gotten my name from some folks, and that I would be the quintessential person to do this for him. But he commissioned me to do 2 art pieces for him of him as Wolverine that he was going to get printed up and give it out as gifts and stuff like that. I'm not getting into all the details of it, but so Hugh. So Hugh and I start collaborating on these pieces that he's doing, and it was a really, really fun time working on these 2 pieces with Hugh, especially when he one of the pieces I could use some pre-existing Wolverine Wolverine images and sort of mix and match the heads and things like that, and get the likeness and stuff. But there was one that he wanted that was really, really specific. So I was like, Hugh, I need some photo ref on this. Here's my sketch. And then he just took out his iPhone and shot himself in a mirror as the photo ref. I'm like, this is awesome. I got Hugh Jackman doing my photo ref for me, right? So, and it came out really, really well. So we get past that, and then he's off to shoot the Logan movie. Which, by the way, if you have not seen the Logan movie, I think it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. So he goes off to film the Logan movie, and he calls me up, and he's like, hey, Joe, would you be willing to do some comic pages? And he explains the premise of it. And I don't want to get too deep in case somebody hasn't seen the movie, but it involves, in the movie, there are some faux X-Men comics that exist in the universe of this movie. So he said, there's a comic that Logan holds in the movie, and he pages through it. Would you like to do those pages? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, absolutely. So he has the person, I guess, in charge of so one of the production people in charge of putting these faux comics together give me a buzz to give me the assignment and what's needed and stuff like that. And I could tell in his voice that something was bothering him about me doing these pages. So so eventually I got it out of him. I'm like, is there a problem? And he's like, well, the problem is, we already hired an artist to do this. I'm like, whoa, okay, hang on a second. I said, I cannot take money from another. I can't take food off somebody else's plate. So I should probably pass it. It's like, no, I can call Dan. I'm like, Dan who? He's like, Dan Panosian. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know Dan. So you and I talked about this, right? And you were so cool about it because there was more than just the one comic. There were several comics, several faux pages, and you told me that they told you they were going to pay you in full no matter what. So I'm like, hey, so then do you mind if we collaborate on these pages? I'll do digital layouts, and you do the finishes and blah, and it was great. So we got to work together again in this on this awesome movie, right? So I'll show some of that art because I think it was pretty cool. I'm going to go back to full screen on you drawing here,
all right,
because nobody really wants to see me. But so we did this faux X-Men story, and if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. It's really great. But the comic book story, actually, it's really meta the way the comic book story plays into the plot. James
I
Mangold,
thought it was going to be really cheesy, Joe. I thought it was going to be one of those things.
We both did.
I thought it was going to be horrible.
We both did, but James Mangold that movie is so ridiculous.
I love that movie. They did such a good job. Sorry.
So anyway, so I started doing these layouts, and then what you did was, because these were supposed to be comics that came out during sort of the 90s, right? The heyday of
and also the 80s. It was supposed to be ambiguous, like 80s, 90s, and if I can interject, Joe turned in these pages that were like awesome pages for they look like they'd be awesome for today. Like they were fully rendered, beautiful, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to. It sounds like an insult to say it about that time period of comics, but the detail in comic books now is just so much. There's just so much more. So I had to dumb down the pencils a little bit.
Well, because of the way comics were printed back then, right?
Yeah.
So you could put as much detail as you wanted. It would just either not print or come out as mud. So I gave you all this detail, and then you had to get into sort of that mindset, and not just ink it, but you also colored it in with that sensibility, right? I mean, you gave it a fake indicia, the whole thing, but even
that was so fun.
Even the palette was really, really limited, and the distress you added to because these are supposed to be old comics that Logan was actually looking at. So hang on a second. Oh, I've got a little double exposure thing happening here. And again, I'm just going through the pages that I did here while you're drawing away. So now, Dan, you're adding some gray tone in there, right? Is that through just that really fine cross hatching?
Yeah, this area is all going to be pretty. Let's see if you can see it. It's pretty much going to be black.
Right.
But this adds a little. When you're looking at shadows in real life, it's not just black shadow. There's parts of that shadow that might be a little bit lighter, and you can see definition behind there. Like we can see maybe part of this cheekbone. So let's. So
now,
even though the whole.
Now I'm going to bug you. What pen are you using there?
This is the Kuretake I recommended to you.
Right. That's their fine point, right?
Yeah, that's the fine point.
I cannot get that pen to work that finely for me. So what are you doing?
What I do sometimes? This sounds weird, but I'll lift the paper up.
Right.
And now when I'm pushing down on it, it's just going to. It's so gentle, like you just glide it. It's almost like spritching on it. It's not. A lot of times people will ink and they'll push down really hard. I want to make it as light as possible. Also, I'm not taking time to make sure these lines are perfect, because if it's too perfect and too uniform, I mean, some styles are like that. You'll look at Tim Townsend or John Dell or John Beatty or some of these amazing inkers, Danny Mickey or Danny Mickey's one of your the uniformity of them is what makes them special. But then in other art styles, it's something entirely different. So.
Right. Yeah,
I try to be. And plus, I've done it so much. I just try to be a little quicker. I get a more spontaneous line out of it, and it goes with this actual style.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I have to learn that control, and I know it's in the doing. I'm just too lazy to do it. What now the board you're using? Are you using a very textured board?
No,
a plate board.
Super smooth.
Super smooth. Okay.
This is some artists like a rough texture. You get a different line with the ink. This is extremely smooth Bristol board. This might be some of that Eon paper that Marvel uses now.
Yeah. The Eon, the guys at Eon sent me some samples, and Marvel's going to be using their board, which is awesome. Because for me, when I draw, a textured board is great. But then I'd have inkers calling me and cursing me, like Danny Mickey, especially who was.
Oh yeah, he grew up. He's from that era with Roth. He's with all of us.
But Danny's line work is so fine that I'm like, oh, I get it. So I had to go to a smoother board, not quite plate, but definitely smoother to help it along. So I'm still showing some of these X-Men pages as you're drawing, just to show folks how you turn these into sort of this retro look, which I think is awesome.
Do you have I think I sent your original layouts, which might be interesting for people to see as well.
Yeah, it was too much to show. I mean, the original, just sort of the chicken scratch ones, but even these layouts that you got from me are generally a little rougher. Like if I was doing a finish over myself, these are a little rougher than that. I'd probably have a little more fine line work, but I knew that you were going to go in there and cook these in a different way. And let's see, and then there was the cover to the piece, which was, I'm going to blow this up a little bit because there was a tall order, a lot of storytelling going on in this cover.
Yeah, a lot of characters too.
Yeah, so hang on, I'm just going to blow this up a little bit here. So it was this idea that the X-Men were going to this place called Eden, which was a utopia for mutants. So use this sort of classic big X logo. There's a light shining behind it, indicating this heavenly presence behind it. People, mutants walking towards it. everyone facing towards the light except Cyclops, who looks over. There's a lot of story here. Who looks over his shoulder to see that there is a bloody hand with bloody claws, and the shadow of Wolverine casting across everything. This was a lot of work just to think it through. And then you did this beautiful sort of retro feel. Hang on, let me blow this up too. Couldn't use Marvel Comics, of course, but there were X-Men comics. And is this Eden or the end? So I think it really sort of is indicative. I mean, I love the distressing that you did in Photoshop. Just a great job, man. Loved it. And then
fun to work on.
And then you got to do a few folk covers too, right? You got to do.
I did. Yeah, I did a bunch.
Yeah. Here's a Weapon X folk cover, right?
That's very Barry Windsor Smith inspired, probably. Is it?
Yeah. Wolverine.
It was supposed to all be from that era.
That era
of comics, which coincidentally, we loved growing up.
Yeah. That's Wolverine. I mean, he's kind of naked.
It's baby oil.
He's definitely covered in baby oil. Definitely covered. This Sauron cover here. Yeah,
that was probably inspired by the Michael Golden or John Byrne era when they were in the Savage Land.
Now I got to critique this cover. I mean, Wolverine's kind of looking like, okay, I'm being carried by
Well, I think I hope he's incapacitated in that cover now.
Well, I don't know. He doesn't look like he's passed out. I mean, he just kind of looks like he's like, Sauron's taking me. Storm, help me. And Sauron's like, look at this feeble idiot. What's all this stuff about Wolverine?
It's like save him.
Yeah, it's just I mean, your Weapon X cover. I mean, that's Wolverine, right? That's Wolverine. So
sure.
I don't know. Maybe it was the mood you were feeling in that day. And then and let's see. Oh, this is. I call this one the Magneto is constipated cover, right?
Is that what you call that one?
Yeah, he's looking a little constipated. And then Professor X is in his thralls here. I know this is all metaphorical. We're not going to deal with a tiny Professor X, but Professor X is like, oh, darn you, Magneto! Your constipation. It's just
that was what it called for him.
Yeah, but what era, what artist were you thinking about? As you were doing this particular one.
That one was probably a Neil Adams clone.
Yeah.
Doing a cover or something like that. I had that one. The other one, I think it's. I was trying to. The Sauron one was probably me trying to be Joseph Rubinstein, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
I think I might even sign. I signed phony names to all of the covers too. So I don't know. You probably can't pull that up, but it's interesting just to see.
And then you actually did some pages, right? Some faux pages.
They were. I love this movie. There was if these comic books get thrown around, because they made actual comic books out of these things.
If
they get thrown around in some kind of action and they happen to open up, we need comic book pages in there. So I wrote and drew an X-Men story besides the one that you and I did.
Yep.
And
who are you channeling at this point for these?
That's probably John Romita Jr. from his run, maybe a little bit of Paul Smith.
Right. I definitely see the Paul Smith. Yeah.
I was such a super fan during the Paul Smith era and John Romita era that I had subscriptions to Marvel Comics. They would come in these little wrappers, and it was fantastic. Yeah. I loved it.
Now, how hard was it to sort of dumbing down is the wrong word, but it's sort of containing yourself, right, to color this stuff in this limited palette? How difficult was that to put yourself into that mindset?
It's tough when you have all these possibilities with Photoshop to say, well, I'm just gonna go with that, 4-color process. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't easy, and then you also look at how some of these comic books were put together, using just as limited Dr. Martin's dyes to show the printers what you wanted.
Yeah.
It's just not done in that way today.
Yeah.
But then you have books like Frank Miller and Klaus Jansson's Daredevil, where Klaus is also doing the color guides for that stuff, and it just, you get the right colorist on a project, and it makes all the difference. Yeah. So yeah, it was to me, coloring these days is harder than the drawing part. I think there's so many possibilities. There's so many feelings you can evoke with color. Mm. There's so much you can do with it. It tells us a story in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's with the amount of possibilities you have, of course, you're going to sit there and go, well, what if I change the color to purple? What if I change it to blue? What if it was red? And you just keep going and going. It can get a little bit much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good with choices. If you give me too many choices, I just.
Do you ever dabble with the color?
I do. I mean, on occasion, I've colored a few pieces here and there. I just, for me, it's like, it's one of the reasons I never inked my own stuff, because it always felt like I was drawing it twice, and I'm not confident enough with the ink where I could just say, I'm just going to like really just sort of rough this drawing out and then finish it in the inks, just because I just never got that kind of training. So the funny thing about this Logan movie, right, is that you got paid for it, you get paid in full, which is awesome, and then I remember calling up and saying, hey guys, so I finished. I'm not bothering Hugh with this, right? Because it's not Hugh's issue, but I'm contacting these guys. I'm like, hey guys, I haven't gotten paid for the work I've done, and they're like, oh, you were expecting to get paid? And I'm like, look, not for nothing. I understand you guys have a budget, but you kind of got to pay me something, because if not, that could cause you guys. Not that I would, right? But
this is why I love you, Joe.
Right, but there are legal issues.
Explaining it to them.
There are legal issues here that if you don't pay me for the work, I technically own it, right? Because I'm speaking as a publisher, right? So they ended up sending me like, I think it was $100 or something, which is fine. Because
all it's worth, really, if you look at it.
At the end of the day, I wasn't doing it for the money. It was, and I don't mean to drop Hugh Jackman's name, because you know me, Dan. I'm not a name dropper, right? But it's a Hugh Jackman story. You're a huge name dropper. Yeah. But speaking of name dropping, right? So then the coolest thing for me was, I get a text. From Hugh, and it's a photo of him and Daphne Keane after they'd filmed the scene with my comic, and I was like, all right, look at that, it's awesome. And I remember texting you, or maybe I called you. No, I texted you. I said, check it out. Hugh Jackman texted me this, and then you said, really? And then you sent me back the same photo. So my name dropping went nowhere. But then you had an extra photo, right? Which is that Hugh, Logan holding up your Sauron cover, right? So you did me one better. You did me one better, man. I just could not win. So let's flash a little forward to today, right? Because wow, we're almost at an hour and a half. I can't remember the last time I talked to you for this long. So I've got some covered pieces that you've done here for Marvel, right? That I just want to show off a little bit here. There's this beautiful Daredevil piece that you did. Was this David Michelini sort of inspired? I mean, what were your thoughts behind designing this cover?
Yeah, that was exactly. That was from that era. They want, every time you do a stained glass Daredevil, and you've done like amazing ones of him in the church, there's all these religious tie-ins with Daredevil, because he is born again in a lot of these great stories. So that was a stained glass. I'm like, well, if we're going to do stained glass, we have to, we have to kind of have it inspired by. Right. So how do you pronounce his name perfectly? It's not. I always think it's Mazzucchelli, but maybe it's not.
Oh, sorry. I said it's Mazzucchelli. I got it wrong. I missed it. Mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah. Sorry. So it's a Mazzucchelli inspired, and I might be saying it wrong. I apologize.
It could be Mazzucchelli. I said David Michelini, which is a different person.
Yeah, and Charles Soule was writing the book at the time.
It's Charles Soule. That I know.
Charles Soule, and then
although Soule sounds really sophisticated, he may want to run with that. Yeah.
And then Ron Garney was doing drawing the book primarily.
I don't know if he drew this issue, but
he might not have drawn that issue. But I think that's the trade paperback cover for that.
I see. So
they used it again for the trade paperback.
Now you're really big on typography and lettering. I mean, you do logo design. I mean, you do some great logo design. Not really, but I'm supposed to say that. So when you designed this cover, did you tell them you wanted the logo at the bottom? Did you?
I did.
Okay.
That's what I love about Marvel. Every time I've come in with a logo idea, and I've even done some limited logos for Marvel here and there, but every time I do, and I said, let's mess up the logo this way, or let's put it over here. This might look cool. There's never any pushback. It's like, that's a great idea. And so Yeah, in that case, I did have, I was able. I think I even there were some Daredevil logos I actually drew
Uh-huh.
for that run of Daredevil comics where like there was paint splashed and
Oh, cool.
it was interesting. I mean, I love that. I love that
Yeah.
about Marvel. There's so many great creators at Marvel at the time that were doing that, and I love the nostalgic aspects of it.
Yeah. So now again, you're still using that brush pen that you didn't recommend to me. See,
This is a brush pen I don't think you deserve. You
well,
know what? It's like
but you see, these are the things you do, right? Because you know what it is? It's just jealousy because you're afraid I'll become good at this, so you don't give me the
you're
good
already
stuff.
great at penciling. You're a great writer. I don't think you remember. You actually, when I was kind of considering, as if, you know, I wanted to come back into comics, and I somehow you and I were talking, and this was still probably in the '90s, and I thought because I had been doing a lot of storyboard work that was ready for comics again, and you gave me an Iron Man annual #1 that you had written, and
Yeah.
I drew. So. That was that. I think Bobby Chase was editing it, and I did a terrible job at it. I wasn't ready to come back. I was late on the assignment, and it kept me out of comics for a few more years because I knew I wasn't ready to come back.
I blacklisted you, man. I blacklisted
Is
you.
that what it was?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely. That's what I did.
All right. See, I'm learning new things here too. I knew there was something that happened that
So
I couldn't recover from.
this is one of my favorite covers that you've done for Marvel. It's a Vulture cover for Amazing Spider-Man. And I think one of the reasons I really love it so much is that you didn't send me any of this stuff, but you do incredible caricature work, right? A lot of stuff that's very, very Jack Davis inspired, and everything about this feels like Jack Davis to me. You know,
Oh, that's
from
so cool.
from the coloring to the caricature, the cartooniness of the face, the whole thing. But I love the layout of it. I mean, and the design of the wings and stuff. I mean, that's crazy stuff, man. Again, and
That was
any thoughts about this, or you just want me to
well.
kiss your butt?
Um, that was of course it's very like Mort Drucker, Jack Davis inspired,
Yeah.
and that was what is that? Is that a cyberpunk um,
Yes.
cover series that they were doing, and
Ah, okay. Yes.
so we were allowed to just do whatever we wanted,
Yeah.
and come up and riff on these characters, or maybe this was the Iron Man series where it was like the coming the new look
Yeah.
for some of these things.
Yeah.
Whatever
Well,
it was, I had carte blanche to do whatever I wanted.
yeah. I love it, man.
So
And I thought
thanks.
so the coloring here, right? Were you actually coloring on the board, or did you gray tone this in Photoshop, or gray tone
Well,
it and then go in Photoshop and color it, or somebody
so
else color it?
when I did this, maybe I'll break out the paintbrush right now,
Oh boy, here we go.
a real paintbrush,
Woo!
and so I was using gray tones on the original, and so when
Okay.
you use the gray tones on the original, you can when you put them into Photoshop, when you start coloring over them, it has a very interesting little effect. Well, I don't know if we can see this, but
Yeah, I can see it. Sure.
then I'll come in, maybe use a little bit more black ink, and
Right.
it'll.
Now,
There'll be some
do
parts.
you get concerned with the Kuretake that will that ink run, or is it permanent? Permanent.
It's permanent ink. It's
Okay.
amazing ink. So you could watercolor over this stuff, and it's not going to make any difference.
Right. Awesome.
Nice. So yeah, what happens on that is it's very textural. Now I'm diluting the ink, so the edges of shadows, of course, are very dark. But as you
Right.
get into the center,
Right. Yeah.
how well that reads.
You get a little reflective light there. What
Yeah.
now? That ink looks like it's almost got a sepia-ish tone to it. What are you using?
This is the Eon ink Vortex, also the same company that
Yeah.
makes the Marvel paper.
Okay.
And so now that area that I had drawn in the face, I'm going to come in and put a little gray tone in.
Nice. Winsor
and
Newton
that's
brush. Is it a Winsor Newton?
This is a Raphael #2 8404.
Okay.
And you know who gave this brush to me?
Hugh Jackman.
No, he's your pal. I would never infringe on that friendship. Virginia Ramita.
Wow. So that's
Yeah.
an old brush.
I have so many brushes.
Jimmy was talking about this the other day on the street.
Yeah, she was a taskmaster.
Yeah. You had
You
to
come
earn
in
those
there.
brushes, man. You had to
Yeah,
earn
she's
them.
like, because these brushes now, like if you get a Winsor Newton Series 7, that's a $200 brush
Tell me
in some
about it.
cases.
Tell me
Yeah,
about it. Yeah, it's
yeah, and
expensive
so
stuff.
Virginia would, you want art supplies or Zipatone, you'd go into this chest and you'd get it,
Yeah,
because you're working on a Marvel job. She goes, "These are going to be Marvel jobs, right? Marvel is Marvel." We're like, "Oh yes, of course," and stockpiling
right.
brushes or whatever you do. But ultimately, they are all for Marvel or they are all for
Yeah,
DC. It's all. But she was great. It was great being in the bullpen.
mm,
There's so many, like you were saying the other night about Mark Texiera in the bullpen.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Wait,
you'd
you
always.
actually watched the show, Dan?
I do occasionally. I'm a lurker.
This is the first time you've
So.
admitted it to me. Because when I asked you to go to a show, you're like, well, what's it like? I've never seen it before. What do you do? Why should I be on? Why was the big question? Why do I need to
There's
do
a lot of
this?
whys. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was really. I just figured, you're a busy dude. You didn't watch, but clearly, again, I learn new things from you all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm showing this outrageously cool Old Man Logan cover that you did. I'm going to blow this up a little bit
Oh,
here.
I don't
Uh,
know if you can see a pattern here, but I'm very inspired by all the comic book heroes that I
yeah,
loved, and to me that's like a very Frank Miller again, Weapon X sort of.
yeah. The ninjas
Um,
are absolutely the Frank Miller,
yeah, the
crazy,
hand.
that's just crazy bodies toppling all each other, twisting and turning. And again, folks don't understand how hard that is to do, because it's not just drawing those and inking those characters, the multitude characters. It's the fact that they're all interacting with each other and they all feel like they're living in the same world, right? And
They're all
I don't know what,
falling and
yeah,
battling. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean the
I don't know
artists that
what
can pull that.
reference. I don't know what reference you're using, but whatever it is, It's a matter of making that reference, if any at all. You're making the reference work within the context of the piece. So
Mhm. Um,
outrageous, crazy.
yeah, it was. I love doing that
Yeah,
piece, and I was so happy to get the opportunity to do something
yeah.
like that.
And
And again,
even the way the Logan figure plays with the logo, right? He's you can still read it as Old Man Logan, especially because he creates sort of the A in there in a lot of ways.
mhm.
But
the I love the fact that I mean I love logos so much, and that Old Man Logan logo is a fantastic one because I think it looks like it's some kind of like Helvetica font, but
yeah,
it's so like fitting for that character.
yeah,
Um, from that time, it's a beautiful logo.
yeah.
They did such a good job with that book. Who's the artist on that? Steve McNiven?
I believe it was McNiven at some point.
Yeah,
I don't know if it
beautiful
was this
stuff.
later in the run, but it's just it's a fun book. What I forgot to ask you. So what was the turning point that brought you back to comics, or did I ask you and I just didn't pay attention to your answer?
You probably didn't care,
I
but I
well,
probably put a lot of thought into my
if it
answer.
was what I if this show is about what I cared about, I'd have another guest
I'd
on
never
right
be on
now.
it.
You
You
would be
couldn't
on.
have me on the show.
So
Why should I
so
got on?
but what was that turn? Because I think this is what people don't realize about you is that you cry a lot. You just don't do it in public, but I've seen you
Yeah,
cry.
I
So
use it to get what I want. You know.
yeah, right, exactly, like we all do. So
Yeah.
what? But so you had this sort of breakthrough, right, where you leave comics because your dad passes away, and then maybe you're going through this sort of crisis of faith or whatever it may be, that you're own born again, where you're
Yeah.
realizing that maybe you were only doing this to either prove to your father or to get approval from your dad, whatever it may be. But just when you thought you were out, you get sucked
They
back in.
pulled me back in.
So
Yeah.
what was that turning point where you said, this is really what I want to do. This is what I love to do, and I'm going to get good at it? Because again, your stuff has improved by. I mean, if people just chart your career, in particular when you started penciling your own stuff and then to writing your own stuff, it has been this incredible metamorphosis of someone learning their craft by working their tail off. Unlike people like me that are just incredibly lazy and really fortunate.
You're
Uh,
just gifted. It's not even your talent. You were just handed the talent, right?
No, no, no. I wish it was that easy. To be honest with you, it's just I struggle with everything. But
Uh,
what was seriously? What was the
well,
turning point? Because I think this is really important. Because I don't even know actually. There's so many layers to you, Dan. What was it?
I'm such a mystery.
Yeah,
Um, Well, for me, storyboards kind of taught me that I could sequentially storytell on a fast level. It was
Uh-huh.
something I struggled with while I was doing comics when I was in my 20s. I was just influenced by this person or that comic book artist, and I wasn't actually drawing. Like my drawing style went from John Byrne to it to Jim Lee to it just kept
Yeah.
taking different turns, and I didn't really find myself. When you're doing storyboards or you're working in advertising, you don't have time to sit there and kind of craft a look.
Right.
You're going. So I started realizing, like, wow, my stuff has kind of a here's a little trick, Joe. I have to use a little napkin
Uh-huh.
to make this lighter, this ink. There.
Uh-huh.
It almost lifted it off entirely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence because I hadn't had that confidence before when it came to the drawing. And I thought, well, man, if I'm doing like 30 panels a day in advertising, if I only had to do 6, I could probably do this. And I had done a muscle and fitness job, and Dave Johnson saw it, and we weren't really friends. He called me up. He goes, Dan, I never liked your work when you were drawing comics. This is typical Dave Johnson.
Yeah.
I barely know him, too. He goes, but if you drew a comic book that looked like this artwork, he goes, I'd buy it. And most people would get off the phone and just go, man, that Dave Johnson, what a jerk. And I got off the phone, I'm like, wow, Dave Johnson said he'd buy a comic book I drew.
But then you thought to yourself, what a jerk.
I did. I still think that. I'm going, what a hateful, awful person he is.
Yeah.
And that's mostly true. But I also did a lot of life drawing, helped me tremendously, and still does. Like anytime what's great about California is you have a lot of these life drawing sessions out here.
Right.
And the animators use it, and you always hear about these Disney animators or other animation people that do this stuff, and that's why they get so good. It really taught me to draw, and I realized some of my drawing tricks that I used didn't necessarily apply in life, and I was struggling. So
Dave Johnson was responsible for
Dave Johnson, yeah.
Wow. So if not for Dave Johnson, who knows?
I mean, yeah. So you could hate Dave Johnson's work like most people do, but you can go, well, I like this part of the work. He got Dan back in.
There you go. So we can thank. All right, so there's something to like Dave Johnson for. So it looks like you're winding down here on this drawing now.
I'm actually kind of done.
You're doodling. So all right, but I'm going to challenge you with something here. Okay, you can consider that finished. But before we change the camera over back to you, I want to challenge you with something because you use the craziest stuff sometimes. You have a giant, super thick marker, right? That I see you use on trigger. How would you apply that to this, Dan? Because I would never have
this marker.
Yes, that atomic missile of a marker. How would you apply that?
Point.
It's crazy. I would never have the guts to use that. So how would you use that on a piece like this?
Well, let's find the darkest spot here because now I've kind of scumbled the. Now this is really going to come out dark.
Right.
So, and it should.
Yeah. Now, by the way, are you wearing a gas mask as you're using that? Because I can imagine that you're going to get a contact high.
This is actual real paint in here.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's not that Sharpie smell. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. If it did, I'd be dead. This would be our last hangout. So much for drink and draw.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of gives it a nice effect.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've seen you use that to put big bold backgrounds and things like that. It's just
I usually will do it for special effects.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe I'll find a piece of paper I can do a special effect. Whoops, that's probably not the best thing to show right now. So look at that. Look at that beautiful line.
Wow. And that's just you just sort of scraping it.
Yeah,
mildly,
so
right?
that's sort of feathering. If
Yeah.
you're trying to do that with a dry brush, but you couldn't do it with the dry marker. Like it's just incredible.
And what would you use that feathering for?
Well, remember Lone Wolf and Cub or some of the more realistic manga?
Uh-huh.
You could use that for power or speed lines. Or this could be this could be a cloud.
Hmm.
You have to keep going in and working it, but and obviously these lines here are a little bit much, but I'm just kind of fooling around. But
it could also be out of focus buildings in the background and stuff. I mean, that's cool.
I mean, there's so many different cool things you can do.
All right. So if when you're done there, let me know. We'll shift over. But I'm gonna show another piece of yours. It was Captain Marvel cover you did with
Yeah,
Spider Woman here again.
old Spider Woman.
Yeah, yeah. Why did you choose, Dan, to just sort of have them standing in the street? Just curious.
They had already vanquished all these people, and of course, when you finish fighting everybody and defeating your enemies, the
Right.
first thing you have to do is strike a pose. I mean, I learned that
So
on the streets of Florida. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I saw you do that. I've seen you do that. So
yeah,
so your decision was, I don't want to show the exciting fight. I just want to show the period of rest, right?
yeah,
The period where
exactly.
everybody's resting, and like the newspaper cameraman comes around and says, "Hey, you just stopped all those supervillains.
Mhm.
Wait, hang on, wrong piece. Hang on, you just stopped all those supervillains, and could you strike a pose?" And so Captain
Exactly.
Marvel sort of just stands there, and Spider Woman
Hmm.
gets into her
Error,
spider pose,
perfect.
and that's the
Yeah.
moment. That's the moment you decided to take.
There's a interesting book that How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way
Yeah,
by
yeah,
John
yeah,
Buscema
yeah.
and Stanley, and Stanley's, I mean, John Buscema's like showing you like what's the best part of this action pose
Right.
is Captain
Yes.
America
And you chose
throws a
to ignore
punch.
that completely.
Yeah, and so he's like, what's the apex of the action? And so what I wanted to do was like, just go completely against that,
Yeah.
ruin the cover. I was angry at my editor at the time, and I said, this is what you're getting.
Right. Yeah. Because yeah. When he talked about the apex of the camera, for those who are watching, hang on. Let me do my left. No, that's so.
Mhm.
So it's sort of the final point of recoil, right? Where with
Yeah,
the punch, right? Just before moving forward,
yeah.
you either draw that moment. You don't want to
Hmm.
draw the in betweens because they're pretty boring, or you want to draw
Yeah,
the moment where you
yeah.
strike. And you
Crash.
chose not this, not even the in
No,
betweens, and
no,
not
not
even
even
the
the
impact. You
no
chose impact, several beats.
hands on
You're wiping their
canvas.
hands, and it's like,
Yeah,
woo, woo. All right,
woo.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
the moment you
it was
chose.
the coffee,
That's great.
basically.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was my. That's how I try to make Marvel
Yeah,
mighty.
yeah. And then another cover you did here that I love is this Punisher Black Cat cover for the Marvels. Uh,
Oh, that was fun.
yeah,
The thing was so. The thing is one of those characters that are really, really hard to draw.
he really
It's
is. He
it's so
really,
amazing.
really, really is difficult to draw. You would think it'd be easy, but I remember drawing him one of my early tenures at Marvel, and Mike Mignola inked me, and I think I drew him with teeth. Uh,
I inked that cover for Ghost Rider. It was a Ghost Rider cover,
no,
and
you inked
he's on
that?
fire.
No,
He's on fire, right?
no,
Oh,
no.
well, that
This
this
is
is
one
where Ghost Rider was.
where the thing was throwing playing cards.
Oh,
So unless Mike Mignola gave it to you to ink and lied to me, but no,
I
no.
was his assistant for years.
Yeah.
So no.
But I love this cover. And what I love about it most is that I know you did not pose for the Punisher's arm because it's way too big for your arms these days.
That's way too big. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sure I had some bodybuilding reference out there, and
Right.
you know,
So we're gonna get to some fan questions in a few minutes, but I don't want to miss out on the fact that that you have a creator-owned project out there called Slots, right?
yeah,
So tell me about Slots. It's from Skybound, and yeah, I mean Slots, man.
yeah. The
Talk about it.
slots. I was Robert Kirkman at Skybound was asking me if I wanted to work on this project or that project, and he kept presenting me these scripts,
Right.
and I kept saying no to these scripts. And of course, what I didn't realize about these scripts were that they were written by Robert. So he never brought that up until years
Right.
later. It's like, you turned down this project and this project, and that project turned into this project. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to write and draw. That's the reason I got into comic books. I want to be a Frank Miller, a Walt Simonson, a John Byrne,
An
Jim
auteur.
Starlin.
You want to be an auteur.
Yeah. I mean, those are the heights you want to reach. And I was like, that's the comic book experience I want. And I have
Right.
a lot of story ideas. They let me pretty much do whatever I wanted. I had a great editor, Sean Makowitz, who used to work with Bob Harris.
Yeah.
And now he's an incredible editor on his own. And it's a interesting book. It's about retribution, a man taking back charge of his life. He's near suicidal, and he wants to right all his wrongs. But unfortunately, because he's such a a dirtbag, really. He's not equipped. He's not
Right.
equipped to actually know how to be a good guy. So it's kind of that journey where he's getting his second chance, and you're watching him blow it and sometimes achieve it. Just like
Right.
we
So
all do.
and it's called Slots because it takes place in Vegas, I'm guessing,
It's in
right?
Vegas, and the idea is that we all, metaphorically fit in different slots, and it's hard to get out of that slot once you're in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's deep, dude.
Well, look at me. Look at me.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in
This,
here.
like I said, the layers of the onion, man. Just
Yeah.
but he's also a fighter, right?
He's a boxer. He's kind of it's a boxing story, but it's more of a story about a grifter. It's more of a story about gritty Las Vegas and crime.
Mhm.
So he does that. He's lost more fights than
Yeah.
he's ever won on purpose because he's probably bet against himself. And he has a son
Right.
named Lucy that he left. He's an estranged son, and his son is, he's kind of old Vegas meets new Vegas, and his son living on his own is an MMA fighter, and eventually they get put on the same cards together, and it becomes a big hit because it's father and son both fighting the same night, and blah blah blah. So his career starts revitalizing. He wants to save this casino, this kind of rundown downtown Vegas casino, and help them out. And this is his way of doing it. And he has this insano plan, which is you'll find out if you read the series on how to do that and how to basically become an avenger for himself and his ex-girlfriend.
How does it end, Dan? No, I'm kidding. Don't.
Turn the page.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm showing this shot. I know you can't see it, but I'm showing this beautiful sort of shot that you did here, with him in his convertible and Vegas,
Yeah.
and just the way that you approach the color here. Again, the logo treatment. I know you did it yourself. Your sort of loosey goosey style that just that city's just spectacular. I mean, you nail Vegas, but I love the fact that you highlight the red on the car and on him, so that because I'm sure if we're looking at this piece just in black and white,
Yeah.
you won't see him right
Not
off
at
the
all.
bat, right?
Yeah,
So
there's so many things to look at.
that
in a
spot
black and white
color,
sense.
right? That spot color draws you right there. It's a very European sensibility to it, which I love. But it's a great piece, man. So congratulations with the book. It's I don't have it. Usually my good friends will send me their stuff free, so I don't have to pay for
Let's
it.
see what I can do.
So I don't have slots, so I can't really say it's good or not. I know the artwork's great. The writing, I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't
It's a
know.
wild
Well,
card.
I don't know, but or you may think. So you started this thing also, right, years ago, called Drink and Draw, right, with two real low life artists, Dave
That's how I can write
Johnson.
a.
Dave Johnson and Jeff Johnson. I got a photo here. By the way, I'm sorry. It's the Reverend Dave Johnson because he is an ordained minister. Short of you here from I guess San Diego Con. Is that a year here?
No, but we're launching the first Drink and Draw coffee table book.
God, they look so young. What happened to these guys?
Oh God, life.
Yeah. So explain Drink and Draw to those that don't know. I mean, explain the physical manifestation of Drink and Draw.
So
established 2005.
Yeah, well, that's officially established with Dave going, let's all go out and let's make this thing official. It's called the Original Drink and Draw Social Club. I'll use this as a way to, I'm married, Jeff is married, get you guys out of the house under the auspices of we're at a bar, and you'll come back with some drawings.
Dave's not married, right?
No, Dave has been married.
Several times I found out, but currently
I
he's
have
not.
never known Dave to be married since I've known him. But he's got 8 wives, a few mistresses. But yeah, I used to go to these bars in Laguna Beach. There's a biker bar and just sit there and draw the band while they were playing. And inevitably bar patrons would go, could you draw me? And it was a great way to meet people and socialize. And I'm sure a lot of artists have done something like that. They'll just draw in public and creepily look at someone, stare at them. You go, why is that person staring at me? And then you're like, oh, well, I'm drawing. And they're like, oh, well, then stare away.
Right.
Keep staring. But so I love the idea of drawing in a bar already. And Dave was like, let's make it official. Let's make a drawing club. Let's do it. So it was me, Jeff, and Dave, and we all went out and started it then, and then we started inviting other professional artists, and then it just grew and grew and grew. We were on MySpace of all things when that was we had a MySpace page.
Nice.
And it grew, and now you'll see a drink and draw in every city around the globe. There's one in Hong Kong. There's in Japan. There's several. There's a couple in London. Any place that there's people drawing in like comic books.
Right.
People are attracted to socializing that way, and it gets you out of your shell. And there's animation guys. There's storyboard guys, advertising guys. Sometimes people just show up. They just like drawing, and they've never done it professionally. But what's nice is the artistic community in general, for the most part, is a very friendly community. Like we're all interested in
except
seeing
for Dave. Except for Dave,
but Dave's very judgy. And but yeah, we all are like you want to see what the person drew next to you, and you'll check that out. And like, oh wow, it was a great time. So we had 2 coffee table books, and we're working maybe on possibly putting a third one together. We put this YouTube channel, the original Drink and Draw Social Club, which was a great show until you started showing up regularly. But
by the way, you designed the logo, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I designed the logo that's the standard written logo. Dave did the circular design, and then I did some tweaks on the design. But that's Dave Johnson.
All right, it's a little busy.
Well, it's Dave Johnson. Dave Johnson's pretty busy.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I think it's awesome. I just can't figure out what is. So it's established 2005. Then the triple X, right? Then what is that thing below that? Between the X's and the Los Angeles chapter, what is that?
There's some teeth. I think those are some teeth.
Really?
And he's maybe blood or drool or beer.
No. It just looks like some. All right. If it's teeth, okay. What was not quite sure.
We'll go over that. Maybe we'll go over that this Thursday.
I think you need to, because I don't quite understand. I get the bottle cap. I get the triple X to represent the alcohol, the established. I don't know what the teeth are supposed to be representative of. I mean, is it like everybody in Drink and Draw has bad teeth? I don't quite understand.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to bring it up with Dave.
I mean, this is why I'm here, to call these things out, to make you guys better, right, at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, I've gone, with my trips to LA, I went to, we were out having dinner and drinks one night, and you're like, hey, Dave's having a drink and draw thing at this really down and out bar in LA. You want to come? And I'm like, all right, it's pretty late, but let's go, right? And we got there, and there's Dave and like 2 other people. Right, I was like, "Wow, this is
not too many people like Dave.
This is really disappointing." And then I was back in LA again, and you were busy. You're like, "Hey, I'm at a drink and draw thing that I'm doing." And I'm like, "Oh, I'll come join you." And I went, and it was this cool, out of the way sort of. I think it was in Burbank, sort of out of the way, but super cool, trendy bar, and it was packed. And you had models and I was too intimidated to draw. I mean, there were just so many amazing artists there. So it was a big difference in the quality of the drink and draws at that point.
Well, but Dave's drink and draw and my drink and draw are 2 different things. So.
Yeah. The Dave one was it's a little sad. But sad. I'm glad I got to experience the real thing. So now on YouTube, you guys are doing this sort of as a live experience, and yes, you have the pleasure of having me join you every Thursday. So you've been getting some great guests. I mean, I don't know how you've been getting these people, but
I don't know who knows people like these.
I don't know how you get these guests. Yeah. But you have a real catch for tomorrow, right? It's Thursday nights. By the way, any kids out there, this is sort of a mature audience show, so don't go. So this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. West Coast. Who is the guest?
The Walt Simonson, the Norse god of comic books himself.
I mean, Walt doesn't do these kind of things. Right?
No.
Does he know? Easy. Does he know what this show's about? Does he know what
I doubt he's ever watched it.
Like, he would do my show with a heartbeat.
In a second, he would do your show. But a show like mine?
I'm wholesome entertainment. Your stuff is just, I mean, we're just going to drag him through the mud. We're going to get all Walt is, when you talk about Walt and Wheezy Simonson, his wife, who was a great editor, great writer at Marvel. The thing people always say is they are the two nicest people in comics. Hands down.
Yeah.
There are no negative Walt Simonson stories. But I know you're going to try to get him out of him because that's the kind of person you are, and I really despise you for it. And you really should not do it because Walt's a legend, and we should not be doing this with him.
I'll try to be respectful.
I'm just going to sit there and worship at his feet, metaphorically, socially distancing his feet.
Yeah.
So listen, we're dragging this on. Let's get to some questions. I want to get to some questions here because we got a lot of really good questions here, and then we got to get out of here because we're going. This may be the longest interview I've done, and I'm sure the audience has dropped off. Right now, it's probably you, me, and maybe 3 other people, right? Who
Dave
watch
and Jeff Johnson.
Yeah. But we have people that watch the show. Not to intimidate you, Dan, as you go to answer these, but we have people. This isn't like drink and draw. Where we get we have 5 people total, right?
Yeah.
We get a lot of people that watch this over time from all over the world. I mean, all over the world.
I'm getting nervous.
You should be nervous.
Hold on, I'm sweating.
Yeah, because there are people around the world who have never experienced you, thankfully, and now are. So who knows what will happen? But I just wanted to drop that on you so that you understood. Okay. And by the way, as I say that, we're getting more questions coming in too. So let's see how long this takes us. All right.
And answer these honestly is what you're saying, right?
No. Nobody wants honesty from you, man. All right. So John Watson illustration. Dan, what do you find to be the most difficult step of making a comic? Writing, penciling, inking, or coloring? Which part is the least difficult for you? That's an awesome question.
The inking is the least difficult because I'm very comfortable inking. It's probably the most fun for me because I wouldn't say it's autopilot, but I do very loose pencils. I'm not a very confident penciler. So when I divorce myself from the pencils and I say, now I'm doing finishes over this terrible artist. I have to fix their work with the inks. So I give myself permission just to do whatever.
Right.
So the hardest part for me is the coloring because it's something that has come out so much later. Like I didn't start coloring until I guess maybe 7 years ago. I was primarily just black and white my whole life. So I really have a lot of respect for colorists.
See, I would have thought you said the writing because it's sort of the thing that I would assume is the newest for you, right?
Well, I've done a lot of writing here and there. I've written some screenplays. I did a Duke Nukem screenplay here and there. Right. I've done, when I was doing corporate advertising, I would do the copywriting. I would do a lot of writing here. And I mean, I love writing, and it's not an easy, I'll just write something. But for me, the time and intensity and with coloring is really tough. But I love writing. Writing is really, I find I get a lot of pleasure from that.
Cool. Yeah, because I know even in the learning your craft kind of way, I know that as you write stuff, you get together with several writers, right? Is it like a support group, or it sounds like an AA meeting for writers, right? where you guys get together
Did you
and
come to one of those?
No, I didn't. I thought I would have if I lived out in LA. I would absolutely go to those because I think it's an awesome idea. But tell me a little bit about that.
There's a friend of mine, Joe Ross, and John Davis. They have this cool writing group. They're mostly screenplay writers, but I'll run by, like, I ran slots by them. I've got a project, I don't know if I can say, but it's coming out from 2 different publishers where there are 2 different writing projects.
You have a lot of projects coming out that you can't talk about. So yeah.
And so when I did that, we're going over the stories and we're tweaking them and improving them. It's nice to have that sort of feedback from people that understand story structure and what to deliver on.
Cool. All right. Another question. Gabriel Nardelli. Great show. It's so inspiring to hear the origin stories of amazing artists. Could you please talk about the job and challenges of a cover artist? Thank you very much, and greetings from Italy. See, I told you.
Italy. I love Italy. Fantastic.
Yeah. Love Italy.
The challenge, and Joe, you know this, sometimes you're doing a cover for a book that you're not necessarily reading, or, and no one's read it because the book hasn't come out yet. So, a lot of instances, even the artwork for that issue isn't drawn yet. Yeah. So to try to capture that, you have to work very closely with an editor, and that process of doing thumbnails and coming up with the right look and sometimes feel of that book is the most important thing, capturing that character or situation. So it's a lot of fun. I love it. Dave Johnson's a great cover artist. I look to him for inspiration.
Right. Dave says he does all your layouts.
I wish he did. They'd be better covers.
So he's lying. What you're saying?
He's lying as usual.
Okay. Let's see. We got Zach Goyette. Zach's always on the ball, man. He's always sending us stuff. For both of you, which artist draws the definitive version of your favorite character? Oh, great question. Go for it.
All right. I will say John Buscema and Tony DeZugna over Conan is, to me, that is that character.
I know. Listen, let's get this out of the way, okay? Because we've talked about this in other streams. You think you're better than John Buscema at drawing Conan.
Yeah.
I've heard you say this. Listen, I only met John Buscema once in passing, but every time you talk to a creator who knew John or worked with John, you always ask him the same thing. You don't even ask it. You just sort of lead the question. I'm better than Buscema at Conan, right?
Sometimes before I even shake their hand, or now just do an elbow bump, I'll
and we know the question's coming, and we're just like, oh God, no, not again, Dad.
I guilt them into saying that, and then we can proceed from there.
Right.
How about you?
For me, my favorite character is clearly Daredevil. And Spider-Man is there too, but I have to say Daredevil just because of my history with the character, and it's David Mazzucchelli, hands down. I'm sorry, it's going to be a tie. I also think I think David Mazzucchelli because of the great Born Again story arc, but maybe pound for pound, I think John Romita Jr. draws
Al Williamson.
And Al Williamson. I'm going to go with, no offense to David Mazzucchelli, I'm going to go with John Romita Jr. because the athleticism of his Daredevil, the motion of his Daredevil. I mean, I own a bunch of those pages from his run with Ann Nocenti, Al Williamson pages. And it's breathtaking stuff. I just think it's some of the most beautiful, the athleticism of Johnny's characters, like even just Daredevil running at you across a rooftop. It's like you can feel the weight of the character. So that's mine. So thanks again, Zach. Let's see, Geraldo Borges. Who are your main influences, Dan, from comics or other media? Another good question.
I have an interesting answer.
Go for it.
We're running out of time? Oh, no.
No, we're going to go to the end, man.
I mean, Buscema, Simonson, Kubert.
Now, are you saying Simonson because he's on your show tomorrow?
Oh, no. I loved his Thor run, and I had a subscription to that while he was doing Thor as a kid.
I would assume also Walt's use of typography, right? Lettering in his art was
Howard Chaykin was the same way. Howard Chaykin, when he was doing American Flag, working with Ken Brusniak, it's just the lettering became a part of the big part of the storytelling. So I like incorporating those. I do when I draw sequential pages, I do the special effects lettering myself on those pages. And Richard Sarkings came out with a font, Urban Barbarian, and a separate one, Dan Panosian, where I can use my own lettering on pages. It's great.
Nice.
You have a font, Joe? Joe, where's your font?
I got a font. I got a font.
Richard Sarkings by Comic Craft.
Yeah. Absolutely, I got a font.
Okay.
I have. What do you have? 2 fonts?
I have 2.
Yeah, I got 4.
Oh, yeah. All right. I didn't know that. See, I learned something.
Yeah, no, just go look it up. I got fonts.
Hugh Jackman called me. He goes, "When are you going to make a font, Dan?" And I said, "Well, it's
it's the little things. I don't brag about everything like you do. So.
Yeah, I like to throw that out there. And then obviously Mort Trucker and Jack Davis.
That's right. You weren't done. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
those influences are obvious, and we lost Mort actually. 3 weeks ago he passed away.
92 years old.
Crazy. If only.
And he was still drawing. What's amazing about a guy like Mort Trucker is still drawing great.
Yeah.
And you see sometimes with older artists, their art starts to decline a little bit as they get older. And then you see artists like Joe Kubert never decline, in fact, improve.
It's because they keep doing it. It's a muscle. Yeah. It's just a
interesting,
muscle.
If you, not to bring back Walt Simonson again, but if you look at his Thor work and you look at the work he's doing now, he's better than he was then.
Yeah.
It's insane to see he continues to grow.
Yeah.
So it's very inspirational.
We'll save it for Thursday night because Walt's not listening to this.
I'm
He's
exhausted
not,
now.
He's not watching. He's not watching you. But
do we even need him as a guest? I've already talked about him.
Yeah. So all right. This one comes. This comes from Dave Johnson to ask Dan if you ever have phantom feelings after removing your unibrow.
Look at that thing.
See that? Let me preface this. I've said this last episode. These are the kind of questions I love. All right, folks, keep this in mind. These are the kind of questions I love. So, what do you say?
I had a girlfriend in high school, and she says, we're not going to homecoming or whatever unless you do something about those eyebrows. So I, at a young age, got electrolysis. So I never have to tweeze. So it's gone. It hasn't been there. And then as I've gotten older, the eyebrows that used to look like these massive, like furry, like centipedes on my eyes have actually gotten like a little less centipede-like.
Right.
But yeah, no tweezers.
Yeah,
I lucked out there.
That's good to know.
Painful
That's
experience.
good to know.
And then she broke up with me probably the day after homecoming. But
But
the things you do for love.
Yeah. All right. So Alberto Palazzo. I'm not quite sure what he's asking here. How to choose sample pages. I always struggle on that. Where to pick them. Also, some really pro tips on how to do it. I'm not sure if he's asking about pages to create for samples to show to editors, or if he's talking about the actual stock of the paper. But go ahead. I think you understand it better than I do. Go ahead.
I think the samples to bring to editors, and Joe, you being, great editor yourself, when you were editing, you want to see a little bit of everything. You want to see some action, but you also want to see the quiet moments too, because it can't all just be superheroes in spandex punching each other or the Incredible Hulk. Sometimes it's it's Bruce Banner and he's making a phone call or something. You need to see that the artist can do everything. So I'd say at minimum you need about 3 pages of samples, up to 5, but less is more. You don't want to go to a show and show a stack of work that takes 100 pages to get through.
No.
You don't need that many. A good editor or another good artist is going to be able to look at it and go, okay, this is what they're capable of. And within those small amount of pages that you want to show how versatile you are.
Yeah.
So the quiet stuff and the big stuff and the dramatic stuff.
Agreed 100%. One of these issues, future issues, I'm going to do a tutorial on how to build the perfect portfolio. I've done a tutorial, I think, once live, but it's very, very similar to what you're talking about. Keep it simple, keep it short. Because again, I'm not going to belabor the point here. The only thing that's keeping me from doing it right now is that my tech is working on my separate hard drive that has all of my past stuff, and I need to actually have some of my first sample pages. So I want to use those as visuals. If not, it doesn't have quite the same effect. But I'll get there. So let's see, one more here. Couple more. So John Rischetti. Oh, John's got a lot here, Dan. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to read it all off, and then you can figure out how to answer this. What exactly is an urban barbarian? Yeah, no kidding. What does an urban barbarian do? How does one become an urban barbarian? Do you carry a sword? Have you ever encountered an urban sorcerer? Are urban dragons actually alligators in the sewers that were flushed down the toilet when they were babies, or are they real dragons? What does a devil pig smell like? Who would win in a cage match, Ron Garney or Jeff Johnson? That's a lot of stuff. And again, thank you, John. I love these kind of questions. So, what's an urban barbarian? Because, again, I'd like to know.
An urban barbarian is a name that if you were a girlfriend of someone that you found a little bit uncouth and unsavory, you might nickname him an urban barbarian as an insult.
Yes.
And if you were a peculiar person like myself, you might take that insult and go, wow, I like the way that sounds.
That's a cool name, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that. So that kind of stuck.
So what do you do? What does an urban barbarian do? How do you carry a sword?
He carries a sword. I do have several swords. Cold Steel.
Nice.
Is this company? When I was growing up, they had these great ads where they'd take it's a Tanto blade, this amazing little dagger, and they'd show a guy smashing it through the hood of a car. Right. Go right through the hood of a car. So my whole younger life was like, I need that weapon.
Right.
I have to have that dagger for some reason because
you never know.
Who knows when I have to stab a car? Yeah. At some point you're going to have to.
Duh.
I'm not equipped. Yeah. I'm not equipped to stab any car at this point. I'm defenseless.
Okay.
So
have you ever Have you ever encountered? I got to keep this movie, Dan. Come on.
Sorry.
Have you ever encountered an urban sorcerer?
No.
No.
Closest thing to an urban sorcerer is Jeff Johnson when he uses Dark Aikido. So
Okay.
that's a whole other episode.
Yeah. And I think you already answered this question about dragons. That yes, they are alligators that were flushed down the toilet.
Large alligators.
What does a devil pig smell like?
He's almost scentless.
Well, first of all,
I don't.
explain what the
Dave
devil
Johnson.
pig is. That's his
Dave
nickname.
Johnson is. If I'm the Urban Barbarian, Dave Johnson is the devil pig.
Right.
And those two words are both two offensive words put together. You get one Dave Johnson.
Yeah, I haven't been around Dave a lot, but I would say probably a mixture of moldy cheese and sour milk.
Yeah, regret and
regret and sweat, and flop sweat. Yeah,
I've never sniffed. I'll have to make it a point once this quarantine's over to really get a good smell.
Yeah.
Really sniff them up.
Yeah, I think regret and flop sweat kind of categorizes it perfectly. Who will win in a cage fight? I know this answer. Ron Garney or Jeff Johnson.
So Ron Garney is a brute of a man, and he's also a second degree, or maybe, I don't even know, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has his own jiu-jitsu school.
Really?
Jeff Johnson, yeah, he does in Connecticut. Jeff Johnson is studied Aikido. He's a black belt in Aikido. He's studying some kind of form of modified Kempo probably right now. It's always some kind of crazy martial art.
Wow.
And he's also has a couple black belts. I've watched Jeff in actual fist fights, and I've watched Ron Garney in fist fights. Ron Garney has also punched me several times. Mm-hmm. So I've been on the receiving end sparring with like.
The answer is.
Oh, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Go for it. You got it.
I think Jeff would agree. Ron might have the upper hand there.
Yeah. I'm going with Garney. My money's on Garney. If I had to put money on it, it's going to be on Garney.
Jeff would just be too nice. Jeff would not. Ron would pull no punches. Ron would if he found a sledgehammer, that would be implemented. Whatever he had to do.
Yeah. Whatever. Broken bottles, the whole thing. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So Tom Mulroney, I'd like to know when we'll see more slots, and what is Dan's process for composing a page now that he fancies himself? Fancy yourself, a writer versus working with another writer.
Wow. Well, I don't know if there's going to be more slots. There's certainly a second series that's kind of already figured out and factored out that I really can't wait to get to. So time will tell if that.
So it's in that universe, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's in the same. It's basically at the end of it, even more misfortune happens along. The main character's name is Stanley Dance, and he has more misfortune, and so we pick it up right where it ends in issue number the first series. When I write for myself, it's Marvel style. So I'll just do a paragraph per page.
Right.
I'll figure it out and try to do the pacing because I already have it in my mind. I already kind of know what I want. If I'm writing for someone else, it's a full script. So it's panel by panel, and depending on the artist and how they like to work, you'll be descriptive or less descriptive.
Cool. All right. Let's see. We're winding down here. Zach Goyette. All right. Who came up with the idea for Drink and Draw? Whose idea was it? Who owns that? I have to say
that's Dave.
Really?
Dave was the one Dave named it. He's the one who banded us all together, Jeff and I, and he is the godfather of Drink and Draw. Let's go Dave Johnson.
Wow. Okay. So now we're going to some of the fan questions on the stream. We're winding it down here, Dan. Winding it down. We have tried everyone's patience. So let's see. This one comes from Chubbs. If you could be any Marvel character, which one would you be? And
no
why?
contest.
And why?
How about you? You'd be Daredevil. Would you be Daredevil? You'd be blind though, but you could work with that. You have radar senses.
No, I'd want to be Spider-Man. Grew up in Queens. Kind of relate to that. Daredevil's just got hella problems, man. I just couldn't.
He does. He's always going through personal issues.
And you?
Spider-Man has his own set of problems.
Yeah.
For me, I would be my favorite Wolverine is the original Wolverine, where he's like 5'3". But I would go with the Hugh Jackman Wolverine inspired kind of character. I'd want claws. I'd want the healing factor. I've given a lot of thought, so I appreciate a question like that.
There you go.
Those are the type of questions I like to hear.
Okay. Spider Hair, I don't mean to ignore your question. He was asking how many years it took us to get to become an artist, but I think we sort of covered a lot of that. So we're going to go
Lifetime.
straight to we're going to go straight to Stephen Miller. Hey Dan, saw you draw your cleric in Drink and Draw or at Drink and Draw the other day, and was wondering if you had a favorite class or adventure to play.
Well, I'm playing a D&D game right now with a guy who might end up being the producer of Slots at some point. He's show running another show at Amazon right now. But we play a weekly D&D game, and I have a character, a cleric, who's basically a thief. He's masquerading as a man of the cloth. But, his name's Father Jaspers. He's a terrible human being, bit of a scumbag.
Oh, language, Dan. Please.
Edit that out.
Yeah, no, we can't edit. We can't edit it out. Okay, this one's from me. Sorry, Dan. Flamentaro. Hey, Joe, is that guitar behind you a new one? It's not new, but it's a different one. So there you go. Hope that helps.
Oh, it's a different guitar.
Yeah. You don't notice these things, Dan. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Interesting. All right, we're down to two last questions. Edie Bass, since you guys are contemporaries, did either of you work on books that the other wanted to work on? Did you guys compete to work on certain characters? Ooh. No, we never worked on certain. I mean, we competed that one time at the ad agency, although Dan didn't know it, and there was no competition. I mean, Dan was shirtless.
Yeah, you didn't have any baby oil.
You were shirtless. I don't think you had it wasn't even a sleeveless. I think you were shirtless and you were covered in baby oil with mullet. So yeah, I didn't stand.
One of those mesh tank tops, so you could actually see the skin underneath.
And it was, by the way, it was belly crop, right? It was a belly crop one.
Yeah. No, I mean, you always. There's so many great titles that you've actually worked on, and I've been in the business a long time, but I'm relatively newer to the penciling side of things. So I've never, you've worked on so many great titles. Marvel wise and DC wise, I've done, small runs of things. So you
do a great Daredevil. You do a great Daredevil, Ben. I know you have an affinity for that. But I mean, the only way I can answer this question is that I know you're doing the creator-owned stuff, and there is a part of my brain that would I work for Marvel. Marvel's my employer, it pays the bills, and here we are. But there's I came from the world of creator-owned as well, so there's a hankering that I'm like, oh man, I've got ideas. Someday I'll get to it. So when I see my friends do it, in particular you, and I'm like, that's so great. It's awesome. Love that you're doing it. I'm also very jealous that you're doing it because, somewhere down the road, I'd love to have the experience again. Because there is the, regardless of whether the money's better or worse, what it may be, economics aside, there is such a great satisfaction to doing your own thing. And even though, I have the luxury of working on great Marvel characters and for the most part, I get to do my own thing. It's never really my own thing, right? It's there could always be an editorial note or something that says, hey, X, Y, and Z. I don't get a lot of them because I work within the system of editorials. I kind of know what editors might be looking for, asking for.
What they'll approve, what they'll say absolutely no to.
And so, but I've had editors call up and say, all right, and I think we'll end on this one, which is a good one. I will not answer it. I'll let you answer it, Dan, because I've answered this probably a million times over.
And I'm going to guess.
You got to lie because you always lie. Yeah. So this is from Emilio Cabrera. What advice would you give artists that want to draw comics, Dan?
Well, I think
make it good. Say, make it good because
what you love.
There's young artists out there that are counting on this, Dan.
Well, you're definitely not drawing comics just because it's a whim. It's like this, or open your own Subway franchise or something. You're doing it because you want to do it, so you already have that love aspect.
Right.
But just never stop learning. And the biggest thing for me, and you were mentioning like where I started and how I've progressed. Like I started, you can look at my earlier work and it's not great work. It's not, and if I can do it, you can do it. And the way I did it was cross-training, just like an athlete sometimes does. Like some of the best athletes, they'll be great at doing playing basketball, or even fighters like in MMA. Like you're learning different disciplines. So even like you go, well, you're as an MMA guy, you're cross-training, you're learning jiu-jitsu, you're learning kickboxing, you're learning boxing and Muay Thai and wrestling. But sometimes these guys are learning ballet or they're learning
Yeah.
gymnastics, and all these things factor in. And I've heard a lot from an artist saying like, well, I don't want to do life drawing because I like the cartoony aspect of my work. It'll stop me from doing that, and I'll become a different
Yeah.
artist. Though the only thing you'll become is a better artist. Like,
Yep.
you'll understand form better. And just like an athlete, you cross train, it's going to improve your overall game. So
Yep.
that's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, listen, I remember reading an article. It was an interview with Frank Miller decades ago, where it was just what he had started Sin City, and he's living in the city, and he was talking about going to life drawing classes. Right now, you look at Frank's art. At that point, he's already really abstracting, right, and doing crazy things with shapes and light. But this is a guy who was going to life drawing classes, and I keep emphasizing this on the stream over and over again. We did on Monday with Ryan Stegman, where Ryan abstracts the figure in tremendous ways.
Yeah,
but he's
so fun.
but he's studying a lot of stuff from animation, from the Disney animators in particular, about how you stretch the body. But in order to really stretch the body convincingly, you have to understand how it all connects and how it all works. So you got to learn your craft. You got to learn. It's like you can't like that Vegas scene that you drew, right? You can't draw that in that sort of loose, almost abstract version unless you know how buildings work. I can't tell you how many times I get portfolios. I'm sure you've seen it, where the backgrounds are these rectangles of what the artist thinks a building looks like, and what they end up looking like are cereal boxes that are lined up with cross-hatching on it for the windows, and that's not how a building works. So learn your craft, and I'm not saying copy the photos, but you need to have the stuff around you so that you can understand. Oh, this is how a window works. Look at all the.
It also just inspires you, right, Joe? Like, you see like like Chicago architecture versus like architecture you find in New Orleans. Like, that informs the story, and you're not going to just do it by just like, I think I remember what New Orleans looks like. You're going to have to pull up some reference and look at it and go, oh, balconies are so interesting, and like, this is what Bourbon Street looks like, and this is the feel you have for it.
Unless you are one of those 1 in a billion savants with a photographic memory.
Who's that awesome Korean artist, Kim?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy has a photographic memory like no other. I mean, he doesn't even put a pencil down. He just starts drawing, and he has it.
And that happens. But I will tell you, unless you are that one person out there, you can't do that. None of us in this industry can do that. That's what makes him so special. So Dan, thankfully, I can now say goodbye to you. We're
just getting along. This is the best conversation you and I have ever had.
This has shattered the record for the longest stream I've ever done. So I'm going to go back to Marvel and tell them to edit this down to about 15 minutes because it's just too much Dan Panosian. But dude, thanks a lot, man. I'm going to see you on Thursday. If you want to stay on while I say goodbye, I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm going to take you off camra because I think. Are you going to compliment me any?
Are you going to like, thanks again for Dan, like that sort of thing? Because I'll stay on.
I'm just going to hang up on you. Like we do on Drink and Draw. We have a knack of doing that to people. Sorry, I'm going to take you off camera. I just want to say
thank you. Thanks, Joe, for having me on, and thank you everybody for listening.
You're really welcome for everything. Yeah, for everything I've done for you. You're welcome. You'd have no career without me.
True.
That's
He's
not
sitting here.
True. No, dude. Like I say, that's the one thing that is universally, aside from you being an okay human being, the thing that people universally talk about is literally the how you've step by step improved your artwork and all aspects of it, right? Because you could do every aspect of it. So
still trying, and I got a long way to go. Big time, but it's fun. It's a fun journey.
We all do, brother. So thanks again, man. I'm going to now go to my full screen where people can stop seeing you. So be quiet. You don't know how to mute, so just be quiet. You did? How about trying it now because you're off camera? All right, good. Hey guys, so you got to meet Dan there. If you didn't know Dan, one of my best buds. He's awesome. So let us talk about what's happening next. So I need to take a few days off, more than a few days, maybe about a week off, to get some stuff together, just family stuff. Going to get out of this studio, so I'll probably be in a different location. But doesn't mean I'm not lining up guests. So I'll probably be back mid to late next week. I can't tell you the order that everyone's appearing in, but I'll give you. I'll tell you who we should have on pretty soon. So let's see if this actually worked for me. It'd be great. Next issue. We got Teeny Howard. Teeny Howard has agreed to come on the show. We have Mr. Brad Meltzer coming on the show, and also Paul Shear will be on the show. So these folks have somehow or other agreed to be on this show, and I don't know. I got lucky, I guess. It's going to be awesome. But in between then and now, I will see you guys hopefully next Wednesday. If I can do it earlier, I will. But I'm not. I can't make any promises. So it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere around there. I want you guys to be safe, healthy, take care of yourselves. Do the right thing. Whatever are the proper things to be doing in your area, wherever you are in the world, or wherever you are in the United States. I love you, and I want to see you back here. And I will try to be back here. And I will never have Dan Panosian on again. I promise. It was a big mistake. I know. But as always, we will be continued. So thanks, guys, and I will talk to you later.